but it's also about applying them in practice. And that's what we do at the social sciences as well. We try to support transitions and technology into transitions. So how can we develop better or safer or healthier food change? That's a challenge we all work on. And I think you have some pieces of the puzzle gathered together. And I'm really looking forward in bringing them into practice with this friend of mine that I talked to yesterday. So I wish you a very nice day. Share the outcome of the studies that you did. And I wish you all the best for next steps to come. And I really hope that you can do something with this tiny challenge that I just gave you. So thank you very much and have a nice day.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you very much, all of you, to be here. So it's really a pleasure. Well, I was thinking, this is I say, Peter, well, this is the last chance. And this is not true. So I think that this is not the last chance. It's the first opportunity for the next period of collaboration. So I think that this is a much more accurate vision about what is expected from this event today. So from the coordinator point of view, so I'm really happy to do this physical, the true and authentic first physical event all together in this project here in Wageningen. We are really happy to be here. And I expected that our expectation is that today we can squeeze a little bit more the challenges of the project and identify future collaboration lines. And not only identify, because this is the diagnostic step, not only identify, but plan how to implement and how to make reality next collaboration. I think that we have our most, how do you say, our better asset is this different expertise that we have all together in this project. So we need to take advantage of this expertise all together to build new things. So thank you very much, Lan. Thank you very much, Mireille. Thank you very much, Wageningen University and Research. And thank you very much, all of you, to be here.
Thank you.
Can I start?
Yeah. Guys, so fast. We have reserved half an hour for the introduction. But I think, may I take this opportunity also to welcome you to this final conference of TrustEat and KB37. And maybe if things are a bit ahead of schedule, I can introduce the program today. We are starting now ahead of schedule to have a welcoming introduction. At 10 o'clock, we'll have a keynote talk from Fiona. I think you will introduce yourself. We can also start a bit earlier. So Fiona will introduce to us concepts, not only the theory, but also practice of blockchain, about technical issues as well, interoperability, among other things. So that will lay the ground for further discussion of today. And that will be followed by a panel discussion in which 3 project members from TrustEat will, including myself, will introduce to you what we have observed in the past years, where we stand when it's about food and blockchain. So that is not meant to be like a really scientific lecture. It's really meant to introduce you what we see as the state of the art of food and blockchain. And the idea is that based on our review, we will have very lively discussion with each other among the panel and with the audience that will give us further food for thought and for the next session. So around 11 o'clock, we'll have a brokerage session. It works like speed date. The idea is that we all have ideas, we all have questions or problems we want to solve, like Ian has his problem. We have our own problem, and our people in our network may have problems as well. We want to offer the opportunity to look for possibilities for collaboration. And so we may have people who are offering solutions, people looking for partners. So that is a brokerage session. And after that, we'll have lunch. It's a bit longer than usual. The idea is that we have sufficient time to exchange ideas and discuss further. And after lunch, we'll have an afternoon program. I think I better share the slides. It's online as well. In the afternoon, we'll have another panel. So the focus will be, so we know now where we stand with the blockchain and landscape, and where do we go from here further? So what is the future of safe and healthy food systems? Is it with blockchain and with blockchain in the center, or is it without blockchain, but a lot of digital solutions? What solutions are more promising, and what do we need from, the basic research analytical methods in order to feed the blockchain and other digital solutions? So I hope that will give us a lot of inspiration for future collaborations. And then that will be a panel in the afternoon. And after that, we'll have, again, a wrap-up session, and we reflect on what we have heard, new ideas, and exchange, new possible research opportunities. And that will be followed by an exciting lab tour. I'm very grateful that our colleagues at our sister institute, Food Safety Research, will show us their state-of-the-art lab equipments, but also research directions and the latest topics. So I hope this is the...
I suggest, because we have time, I suggest to do a round of presentation, maybe, explaining who is a little bit...
Yeah.
No?
Yeah,
What
I
do
think
you
that's a
think?
great...
Take advantage of this, no?
Yes.
Well, we can start by...
Yeah.
Well.
Ian has just...
Yeah, I think I made my point clear, right? But
Yeah.
I'm Arjen from Wageningen Economic Research, program manager, basically focusing on consumer and market research.
I'm Fiona.
Sorry.
I will turn it on. I'm Fiona. I'm from Dublin. I'm a software engineer. I have an agri-tech firm, which is a Web3 blockchain-based solution provider into the agriculture space, and I create, I build software that helps farmers. It's very early for that, so actually I help researchers more than I help farmers, to be honest. And then in that, recognizing that the kind of things that I do and what I'm interested in doing is very much at that R&D wave. It's at, it's at the front end of that wave. I do a lot of, I guess, awareness raising, business development, knowledge transfer, knowledge sharing, and some of that is around open standards development. So innovation and open standards development, and being prepared to cooperate across knowledge domains is absolutely where I'm working, and where I think the connectivity is with events like this.
Nice.
I am Patricia. I will be in the second panel discussion as well. And I work at Open Food Chain, and we basically make infrastructure blockchain based to make food supply chains transparent from farm to fork. I guess people here know what that means. Normally I have to explain a little bit further, but probably that's not necessary. Within the company, I run our Agri Accelerator program, so I have a little bit of a different role. So I'm not the most tech savvy here, maybe, but I do know, especially from somebody who doesn't know tech a lot, I can explain it really well. So it makes it a little bit easier to understand. And I talk to a lot of people who make agri-technology like you do, because I run the accelerator. So I speak to a lot of different entrepreneurs. That's it, I guess.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mireille van Hilsen. I'm a colleague of Lan and Arjen and some others I see in the room. I'm a senior researcher, and I research the digitalization topic. Oh, Chan, you're also my colleague. Chan just joined us because he's researching legal aspects, and that's one of the things that we're running into currently a lot. We work together in, for example, the ELSA lab, which stands for Ethical, Legal and Social Aspects of Artificial Intelligence. Basically the social side of technology. I do have a background which is a little bit more technical, but currently I'm really interested in the application of all these technologies, and especially blockchain, of course, today. What does it really do? What does it actually provide farmers and other end users? And how can we make sure that it's embedded in such a way that people can actually use it and make the world a more sustainable place? That's, of course, our objective. So thank you.
Yeah. So
Hi, I'm Carla. I am a researcher at INL in Food Quality and Safety Group, and I do mostly research in food allergens and food traceability. And I came to Wageningen to do a secondment with the TrustEat project. So I'm a second year.
Hello, my name is Peter Olsen. I'm a senior scientist from NOFIMA, the Norwegian Food Research Institute. My background, I'm a computer scientist. I worked as a programmer for 15 years, but the last 20 years or so, I've been looking into applications of technology and especially information technology in the food industry. I have a PhD in food traceability, and maybe the thing that we're looking most into now is really what is the difference, advantage and disadvantage, if you compare a blockchain-based traceability system to a good distributed normal database underlying system. What really is the difference? Because I think there's a lot of misleading information there. I mean, practically, I would classify 80% of the information I read about this coming from a traceability perspective as misleading, because I'm a big fan of blockchain, but many of the advantages that are given to blockchain is actually the advantage of having a good traceability system. It doesn't really have anything to do with blockchain, but there are some advantages of blockchain by all means, but we'll discuss that later.
Nice.
It's promising.
Hey everyone, my name is Can Atik. As Mireia mentioned, I started as a researcher in Wageningen Economic Research. I have completed my PhD in Tilburg Law School. So I'm a lawyer, but I focused on agricultural data access problems from the competition law perspective and also innovation regulation point of view. So I'm hoping to learn from you a lot. And yeah.
Nice. We need lawyers as well.
Honestly.
Hi, good morning to everyone. My name is Izu Oliveira. I'm a staff researcher at INL in Brighton. I have a background in analytical chemistry, but in the last years, I've been essentially working in developing of sensors for agriculture, optical sensors mostly, for agri-food applications. So yeah, that has been following the TrustEat project from the beginning, and it has been a pleasure for me to be here.
What's in your box?
Sorry.
What's in your box?
I don't know, this is box,
Uh-huh.
but it's a surprise. I'm just,
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, my name is Elena. I'm working in WFSR in the team of authenticity and nutrient. I am a project leader there, but my background is in organic agriculture. So from my professional side, I'm really interested on the impact that blockchain has in the traceability system. And from my personal point of view, or from my personal side, I'm really interested also on the impact that this kind of technology might have also in the inclusion of different farmers or farming production systems. So yeah, I'm really eager to learn today.
Good morning, my name is Liam Dwyer. I work as a consumer scientist at Wageningen Economic Research. As like a consumer scientist, I usually get to represent the consumer at meetings and discussions such as this as well. So I'm hoping to bring the technological discussion to also a sort of consumer discussion on what does it mean to have a blockchain-based traceability system in the world of a consumer, so on a package or in a supermarket. So that's what I'm also interested to sort of bring to the discussion today.
Hello, my name is Adelino. I'm from IT in INL, and our goal there is to be close to researchers and help them streamline their operations, their research operations, and use IT and the newest technologies to make research more efficient. And in this project, I'm a secondee. I've been in IBM research with our kind friends Patrick and Gero, and we were there to learn a bit from IBM research on how they handle, for example, the data generated in research activities, and also in terms of security and a few more topics.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Monique. I am also from INL team.
I work in the Business and Strategic Relations Department, so it's the grants office. We provide support to the researchers on the pre-proposal award and then the proposal implementation award. And I'm here also replacing my colleague Nuria, who is online. Hello, Nuria.
Hello.
She could not come, so she took the project. She coordinated the project from the grants office side, and I'm here to close it on her behalf.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Spiro Orestes. My background is in mechanical engineering and production and also biosystem engineering combined with entrepreneurship track. Currently, I'm a researcher in the Social Creative Technologies Lab, and we are exploring the integration of blockchain technologies with digital twinning, gaming, the metaverse, and extended realities. And how technologies that can also be implemented in the pharma digital twinning. So yeah, I'm looking forward for more information.
Yes. Bring food to the metaverse.
That's the missing.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Berin Göztürk. My background is from food engineering and chemical engineering, and also additionally in big data analytics. I came to Netherlands 2 years ago, and I started to work as researcher and project leader in food informatics group at Wageningen Food and Biobased Research Center. We are also working together with domain experts in food and bio-based topics, and we are developing knowledge graphs and also like machine learning AI applications in different types of topics. And I'm working in another EU project with Mireia and Lan, and I'm interested in blockchain application in the food area, in food traceable. That's why I wanted to attend and to meet you all. And yeah, I will be happy to meet in the networking event. Yeah. Thanks. Okay.
Hi, my name is Martin Adelwijn. I work at the Wageningen Food Safety Research Institute across the campus. I'm a food chemist by training, and since I'm a researcher in figuring out food authenticity from a chemical perspective. So it means combining the chemical composition knowledge via mostly machine learning tools into some information that we can use and that perhaps we can put into a blockchain type of technology. Thank you.
My name is Annemieke Christians, in the same team as Martin and Elena. I'm the team leader of the Authenticity and Nutrient team, and I'm also the project leader of the KB project that's been mentioned a couple of times on traceability, where we collaborate with Lan and Liam as well. And I think it's really nice to find the connection between blockchain and our analytical work, chemical analytical work. And I will be given a tour later this afternoon.
What is KB?
Sorry?
What is KB?
It's a knowledge base. It's one of the programs we are.
Okay. It's our strategic programs financed by the Ministry of Agriculture.
Okay.
Usually it's a multi-year program.
Where we collaborate with different Wageningen research institutes.
Thanks.
Yeah, so hello everyone, I'm Gianmarco Gabrieli from IBM Research, located in Zurich. And I'm a PhD student, and my project is about AI-assisted chemical sensing. So we have a sensor that we also applied for beverages, quality control, for instance, and that's why we found really a spot in this project to also present our device. And I had opportunities in previous TrustEat events, and today I really look forward to see the next step, or like a different perspective on how we can leverage blockchain and the technology that we have and that you have together to solve other problems. So I really look forward to the event.
My name is Patrick Rush. I'm also from IBM Research, senior research scientist with a background in material science, but most recently interested in AI for the lab of the future and also AI-assisted chemical sensing, working together with Gianmarco. And maybe my statement is, so as technologists, we tend to fall in love with our technologies, and sometimes there's a gap between what we think technology needs to have and what is important for having actually impact. And I think that this project is one of these opportunities where we can shine the light from different sides on the combination of technologies to figure out where these gaps are and to look in the mirror. So I'm looking forward to having this exchange with you.
All right. My name is Gero. I'm with IBM as well, research scientist there. Computer engineer by training. Worked on a wide range of different topics over the years with IBM. And until a couple of years ago, that was a blockchain. And in particular, focusing on linking the blockchain to the physical world. And then I guess it becomes apparent what role that might have played in this project here. And I'll talk about that a little more in a minute. In the meantime, I've moved on to do some cybersecurity work. I hope you see that that is also relevant and don't hold it against me.
Our last guest, maybe.
So that you can see me from there. My name is Ayala Kassan. I am from the Social Sciences Group in the other building across the street. I have been working on transparency and traceability, especially on meat, for the last, I don't know, 7 years.
Sorry, meat? You said traceability on meat?
Meat.
Okay,
yeah. We have the Internet of Farm and Food. We used usually JSON technologies, and so we never applied blockchain technology, to be honest. But I had a number of students working with the company which uses also blockchain technology in Vietnam, where trust in food is less than in Europe. We have a small collaboration with LAN and actually a research article.
Yes.
I always wanted to apply blockchain technology and transparency and traceability of the things I do. We have now one project, EU food safety, which we acquired. It will start in January. There is not much blockchain mentioned. I'm working on another proposal. So I came here, I get the invitation late, so I can only attend the morning session. I came here to meet people and to listen to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nice. Well, finally, I am Lorenzo Pastrana. I am full professor of food science in Spain at the University of Vigo, but I am Spanish, by the way. But at INL, I am leading a food processing and nutrition group. And our role in this project is because we are working on intelligent food packaging. So we develop packaging solutions for traceability, authenticity, counterfeiting purposes, etc. So my conclusion after this round is that this is a polyhedric project, and I think that we have all the angles covered in this room. So I think that we went to do a very good job today.
Thank you. Fiona, may I invite you to have the keynote speech?
Thank you very much. Is there sound here? I know people can't see me, but you'll be able to. Great. So thank you very much, everybody, for your attention. And thank you very much for the opportunity to speak here today. I'm coming very much from, I would say, the startup community, the startup industry. So very agile, very novel, very market facing. So I think maybe my voice is a little bit different to some of the other voices in the room here. And my purpose in that is, I'm not trying to sell you anything, is to bring that approach and that type of voice to the table. There's in the blockchain space or the DLT space, or even sometimes we call it a Web3 space, there's a lot of very fast moving aspects, many of which are in fintech, crypto, DeFi kind of space. And there's a lot to learn there. about iterating new product in highly regulated marketplaces and dealing with compliance issues. So financial services, different to pharmaceuticals or different to the food industry, but equally as regulated and equally requiring compliance. So because I have, I guess, a speciality in a niche, in one particular niche in technology, I am lucky enough to get to have a very deep insight from both research, infrastructure, and the market, like startup, in those kinds of things. So it's from that perspective that I'm talking today, and I invite you to, it's going to top the waves a little bit. We're going to be surfing a little bit. It's not always going to deep dive. Just to introduce maybe how I see the state of the art. Mostly, I wouldn't say I'm in the food industry. I'd say I'm in the agri-food industry, which is a little bit different. I focus on agriculture first. So yeah, I'm happy to share what I have from that. I put in one of the most recent projects that we've, which was a European funded project specifically for blockchain around trust on the internet. So I focused on that. There are many other things I could have included here. So at the end, I'm hoping we have some time for questions. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to do a little deeper dive on some of this stuff. So the name of my own company is Origin Chain. I'm the strategic lead of a recently constituted European project, which is called C-Blocks, specifically accelerating the development of blockchain standards to support the European single digital marketplace. I'm not sure how aware you are of things like the European Blockchain Partnership or the European Blockchain Service Infrastructure, but it's recently been reconfigured and renamed into the European Digital Infrastructure Initiative, which is, they took that model and they will be advancing the model from the European Blockchain Partnership, which was around nation states opting in and supporting that initiative, and they're advancing it that way. So there's some interesting aspects there. I think many of the people here are working with companies, with labs, and with organizations that are competing for European funding. So we'll be touching on some of that, and there might be some interesting information there where blockchain is concerned. And then, of course, I've been on the advisory board for TrustEat, and it has been a real pleasure to stay connected with and learn about what has been happening there. So it's my real pleasure to attend here today and to address you. Let's see. Yes, okay. So state of the art in standardization, DLT, and the future of food. And like I said, I am talking from blockchain, okay? That crypto, blockchain, DeFi, the world of bumping up against the metaverse, okay? So I think one of the people in the room, or a couple of you, talked about that idea of the digital twin. And the problem in the food industry is connecting the product or the real world thing to the digital twin. Whereas in the startup world, we're looking at a competition or a tension between product that we can issue that is only digital, only simulation, only tokenized, like NFTs as digital art, versus an NFT version of real world art, for example. And there's a marketplace in both. So a lot of the advances in terms of what's been built or what's been created in terms of business from Web3 and blockchain has focused first on the digital world because it's easier. We're now emerging, I think, into this more mature society, like a virtual hybrid society where digital twins, the concept of a digital twin can mean so much more now. And what will that mean for food? We are not just talking about product freshness moving through into the supermarket and off the shelf, but we're talking about things like capturing a carbon footprint, which we are understanding has a commercial value. And how are we able to capture value, trade that value? It's already happening. There's carbon marketplaces. I'm not going to talk about how real some of that stuff is. I mean, it's contentious for sure. These commercial opportunities have issues, but this is what the world that we're emerging into, I think. So the things, there's three main kind of focus areas for me that are absolutely key. The language and terminology that we use and how we understand that, cross-domain knowledge transfer and finding common ground. That's really important, whether we're talking about the Web3 hustlers with their, Instagram thing going on, or whether it's food researchers or, I mean, these are the business people of the future, the people, the youngsters in college who are monetizing their gym workouts and their diets are the people that you will be connecting with when you're talking about food, nutrition, that kind of knowledge transfer of the future and reaching younger people. They're your influencers. They're the people you need to reach out to. And so this is, I think what I'm trying to talk about really is this convergence of communication and knowledge. And we're in this very, very exciting time. Capturing language, capturing terminology, and finding the common ground is the first step, which takes something like standardization, something like that. It doesn't have to be formal, but there has to be some sort of tacit agreement there. Then we're talking about trust on the internet, and that's where we all make our bread and butter. Personally, I focus on agri-food, but we're talking all about the big stuff, big data, data itself versus tokenized data, like zero knowledge proof, evidence-based conclusions, aggregated knowledge through AI-based systems, who authors it, who owns it, who has custody of it, what reputation can be made by linking to these kind of knowledge bases or these databases or big data sets. All of these things can be monetized and commercialized. And how do we capture that? How do we track it? I would suggest there's a role for blockchain there for sure. Whether it's the best one, who knows? It's yet to be proved. And then open standards, I'll talk a little bit about that and how to get involved in that. There might be some opportunity there for the concluding part of TrustEat to connect with publishing some kind of standard. I don't know why the logo's in the background there, but anyway, it is. The Canva, oh, shout out to Canva, what a great resource. Okay, state of the art, blockchain DLT and convergence. So when we're talking about what are the things that we rely on blockchains to provide, and we're talking about the domain of trusted information, I think in the European realm, we see that as something that is contested. We see a lot of the European funding programs, the social imperatives there around what is trusted information on the internet. Certainly the European Commission seeks to deliver a context within Europe where citizens can trust information. Next generation internet, all those kind of initiatives are very focused on that sort of stuff. Then we have decentralized identities, looking at cross-border information transit, using decentralized identifiers to protect confidentiality and privacy on the internet. We talk a little bit about soul-bound tokens. It's a concept coming from game theory or gaming, where you have, as a player, you're earning a reputation from your gameplay that can be about good deeds you did in a game, or weapons you won, or carnage you delivered, or something like that. But that reputation token is non-transferable. And that's a very interesting concept when we look at a company accruing a reputation in a novel space like climate facing or net zero agriculture. But very, very interesting concepts. We're butting up against digital twins, concepts of trustless, permissionless, zero knowledge proof technologies, game theory, cybersecurity, of course. I mean, every single business is online now. Cybersecurity is like how to cross the road. I mean, you just can't be a pedestrian, a cyclist, or a truck driver without learning, what your role is on the road, and cybersecurity is a huge big part of that. And then we're talking about cloud, edge, fog, 5G. I could stick AI in here, but it's not actually, personally, I think there's something there about smart contracts, intelligent agency, rule engine, rule-based decision-taking that might be in the domain of or in the conversation of artificial intelligence. AI practitioners don't really like that. It's kind of it's a bit basic, I think. But there's something there around capturing autonomous action or decision taking. And it's definitely something to keep for the blockchain or DLT research community to keep an eye on. The foundational expertise in Web3 from startup point of view, these are the people, crypto digital natives, excellent problem solvers, collaborative team players, good time management. That's probably a bit subjective. And what a lot of what people think of as time management is different in different domains, you know. Project design and execution, young people in startups are being given big projects to execute, and you sink or swim. It's a bit brutal. It really is, and there's not an awful lot of guidance there. So you're talking about developing skills and talent among young people working in this kind of domain, and they're learning on their feet in a pretty, like, crypto Web3. It's a brutal online. There's nobody hand holding you. You find your own way. Very interesting dynamic to introduce somebody who's so self-motivated and so resilient, I would say, onto research teams in this collaborative or participative context. But I would definitely, I mean, a lot of the people in universities are working with young people all the time, right? So you're more au fait with this than perhaps somebody. I'm coming at it from teams that I work with or advise or guide. And there's definitely some cultural issues there around demographics and expectations. In startup land, things move very, very fast. And that's a hindrance as well as a benefit. So I think in the cooperation between academia and research, R&D, there's a real benefit there from, on the one side, slowing things down, on the other side, speeding things up. So the real-time problem solving, collaboration, communication, focus on execution, all of that is kind of beneficial. Very, very interesting. I would say the common ground here, from startup point of view, communicating for the commons. I think it's always helpful to look for that common ground. I would always look at, in collaboration, we're talking about climate-facing stuff, net zero agriculture, evidence-based, really trying to evidence impact, that kind of thing. I mean, these are just a couple of projects that I happen to know, and there are successful Web3 initiatives around them, capturing data, capturing impact, facilitating the industry. Plastics, for example, has opened up a whole new market for plastic that wasn't really there before. Those people, those companies, those recycling companies were focusing on the subsidized plastic, whereas these guys opened up the opportunity and facilitated an assured feedstock on PP5 plastic, not subsidized, and it's more difficult to kind of harvest from the black waste. So instrumentalizing or taking or creating interventions into the into industry or into those commercial supply chains with initiatives like this is kind of interesting if we're looking to accelerate impact in measurable ways. Imagination, Metaverse, and Web3. This is here really because I think we're really starting to see how communications is moving from campaign-driven focus into infrastructure-driven focus, where instead of we've got an app to share the TrustEat outcomes, now what you want is an evidence pathway maybe, or some kind of an infrastructure or a framework or an approach which is cooperative asynchronous knowledge sharing, and some part of that might be public facing, and to what end might that be? So you're actually providing infrastructure, not just info with a glossy campaign like some of the, do you remember this, the NASA thing? You could buy a ticket to the moon. This is my one from like 2018, I think. And so you could, it didn't cost anything. You just like booked your spot on a mission, and it's like a virtual participation in a mission, a satellite mission or something like that. These ones here are kind of interesting. A researcher is using Minecraft, and he's building things in Minecraft like graphs, like comparing the energy impact of, you know, meat versus a non-meat diet. He's just like building the graphs with blocks in Minecraft as a way of sharing knowledge with the public. And then you have participation in online communities and metaverses like Roblox, or, you know, gaming messages like BioShock, or any other different thing. Work at a pizza place. If anyone has kids and they use Roblox, you must have played Work at a Pizza Place. It's like the 101 Roblox game. And it's teaching kids, like my kids showed me how to do it. Kids with the age of, I don't know, when did they start? My kids were probably 9. And you're driving around, you're a pizza delivery driver. You can work in the pizza place, you can deliver the pizzas, or you can be the dude at home ordering the pizza. That's it. So you can like have your house, you can trick out your house, you can have pizza parties in your house. If you're the delivery driver, you can just start like driving around and walk into people's houses. I mean, it's the most bizarre kiddie thing in the world, but it's for social scientists and economics, there is a whole thing you could do, like an ethnographic research on kids' first jobs in something like Roblox. It's very, very interesting to see how people and society emerges online. We are 100% in this transition already. Like we really, really are. Okay, back again. So language and terminology, where we're going, what we're facing. This is the project I wanted to tell you about. It was called Crowdfield Companion. It offers, yes.
Minimize that thing.
Oh yeah.
Keeps on blocking your.
See it. Sorry. Oh,
sorry.
Okay, let me do this again.
No.
Sorry.
It's like the small line.
Just the minus stripe thing.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you for saying that. Okay, so Crowdfield Companion was one of the TrueBlow projects from Next Generation Internet. At Crowdfield Companion, we worked together with 2 growing communities, and it became a mobile edge solution for farmers and growers who wanted to learn and address climate issues in a collective way. So this was a mobile edge solution, blockchain at the edge, with e-learning content. And it was focusing on net zero agriculture. So everything that they could learn was from scientists sharing information about whether it's biodiversity, soil science, water quality, chemical alternatives, that kind of thing. So one of the communities was in Spain, actually, a wine-growing community in Catalonia, working with the university there, and the other one was a smart cities initiative, very, citizen science, planting native species biodiversity in urban settings. So where there was nothing, there now are these urban hedgerows. And this was how they could capture and share and build their reputation and their credibility within the system. So it was participative research supporting that. So the challenge, I think, for all of us is to transform input-heavy systems, make them sustainable, efficient, less wasteful, with better management and improvement methods. And that goes, like the big thing that's often unsaid is that goes for us as technology providers as well. We're asking farmers to, produce more food with less environmental impact, and then capture that digitally. We as the digital providers have to give them the tools that match their efforts around efficiency and sustainability as well. We need to prove that also. I think that's part of our responsibility. So there's a white paper that you could read if you wanted. capturing that knowledge transfer and stakeholder reputation. It was a SOBAN token. In Web3, this is all super cool. We did like really cool stuff. And how they could learn and earn these micro credentials. And then they have this non-transferable token, which becomes a governance token into a virtual digital collective, if that were to become a decentralized autonomous organization. So things that we deployed there were identity, self-sovereignty, data governance, trusted digital asset creation, and primary and secondary marketplaces. And that was around the data. We were trading the data. We weren't selling product or produce. This is some of the technical stuff about what that was. Hyperledger Besu, so it was Hyperledger, private permissioned workflow engine connecting to the Besu and Ethereum clients. It was like a small consortium work engine publishing completed verified data onto the public network. That was our solution, and at the time, that was the kind of recommended solution by EBC, which is European Blockchain Service Infrastructure. There's a link there to GitHub. The technical resources are available open source. I've already shared the link to this online, so it's already available to everybody. So I'm going to leave that there if anyone has any questions about it. The market validation, these were like real field tests, brand new field tests, new kinds of technologists, new kinds of material science, microbiologists, soil scientists, fungal specialists working together in the fields, really trying to help scope really the scoping problem for what is the current state of affairs in that region in Catalonia. Very sandy soil, used to be under the sea, now it's mountains, and they're growing wine. And each of the valleys has kind of a different soil makeup. Rising temperatures, less water. They're not allowed to water the plants anymore. They're not allowed to add water anymore because of the drought and the climate impact there. And farmers are crying out for implementable solutions in the fields. So this was a way of bringing them together with scientists and sharing knowledge together and getting them to provide certain fields in their vineyards for testing. So there's about 2,000, I call them lurking members in that collective, and there's about 40 landowners have actually started to participate. The throttling factor there is the capacity of the researchers to handle all of the fields because they're quite distributed. And that project is ongoing, and that's managed out of URV. So we provided a mobile solution for knowledge transfer, knowledge sharing amongst that community. So that app was published in Catalan. And you can see some of it is a bit like infographics. Of course, as soon as you start to give people what they think they want something else. They want podcasts. They want to be able to listen to it when they're on their tractors. So you're talking about a whole broadcasting unit, essentially, to deliver the kind of knowledge that these field researchers, participative researchers want. And that's a very interesting thing when you think about that hybrid social kind of emergence, where we're going, what people want, and what they need, and how they are layering it into their lives and their practice. Okay, open standards. Before I go on to that, does anybody have any questions specifically on that project? I don't want to jump ahead too fast. You're all smart people. You're all going. Okay, so C-blocks. The purpose of this is to support European innovation and emerging startups. Right? Innovation happens in the market. It doesn't happen in research labs. What happens in research labs is to support something that happens commercially. Right? That innovation happens in the marketplace. Once we're in the marketplace, we become subject to outside forces. How do we deliver our product safely? How do we deliver, I'm talking about technical product, safely, securely, cyber securely. How do we deliver it most efficiently into the business domains that we seek to engage with? So So standards can be technical standards, but I think the most impactful standards we're talking about now is about business interoperability, semantic interoperability. We're talking about data, big data. You want to merge big data sets, you need to be classifying things in the same way. We're talking about massive engineering issues, data engineering issues to get compatibility. AI can help, but if we can set those standards in place, I think you were talking about some of this earlier, if we can offer some kind of framework or direction, it's a high level, relatively high level, we can help solve some of those problems, right? Name it first, define it together. We can all dig into it, work out the finer details in our commercial niches as we need to. So this is what we're talking about. This is how we can accelerate this kind of growth together. And just to remind, for the European Commission, there is a strong concern about digital sovereignty, digital citizenship, who owns the technology, who owns the data, and how can we support healthy, prosperous, and secure, safe and secure environment for the European population. We can see what they've done with the food industry. Like we're so lucky. I know that there are issues in every food industry. I'm not saying there aren't, but we are so lucky to live in Europe, where food scarcity or, food contamination are not routine. They are kind of anomalous. And there are other jurisdictions where that is not the case. And so we produce to the standard that benefits first us as consumers as well as producers, but it also offers us or the industry this opportunity to export as a very high quality product. And as I know that the industry obviously appreciates that and gets that benefit. And so what we're looking at around the boundaries of Europe, our compliance boundaries, our social boundaries, I would say, not even getting into like Schengen and movement of people and human borders, leaving those kind of things aside. When we're talking about the opportunity for industry, compliance, and the regulated context of what it is that we're producing. We are leaders in the social value of what we're trying to offer into the future, and that is something really valuable. I come across that all the time in my involvement in standards development. I work with people in universities in lots of different jurisdictions, in China, in Japan, in the US, in Australia, obviously across Europe as well, and even in Africa. And the benefits and really quite how far we already have embedded the social mission into our concerns and our standards is very interesting. It somehow seems like we're ahead of the curve in dealing with some of these ethical issues, when now we see those ethical issues applied from the technology first, like AI and ethics in the global context. What does that mean? Or big data and AI, or big data and the global marketplace, data centers, where citizens' data is held. Well, the European Commission issued some kind of regulations about that. I know that businesses get annoyed about regulations, but as a citizen in Europe or as operatives in Europe, there's something quite interesting about that. And it's something, I guess it's just something to think about.
Can I ask a question? If you have time, I don't know.
I'm happy to take a question for sure.
For this, the previous slide, you mentioned that you are providing this transparency and trust in trade with these technologies. But I want to ask if there are examples to physical, hybrid, and virtual domains that you work in this project.
So the C-Blocks project is a standardization project.
Yeah.
And new market discovery would be
this idea of, for example, in fintech, with the arrival of stablecoin, and like JP Morgan has a coin service that they use internally for their own systems, which they've invented, stablecoin, which they can reconcile not at the end of the day, but instantaneously. So they're using stablecoins for just-in-time liquidity transfer across their own internal services. And just-in-time, that concept is, you know, quite well from the food industry, right? And supply into supermarkets and that kind of thing. And what does that offer the industry in terms of new commercial opportunities? So when I'm talking about new market discovery, it's kind of digital transformation affords new value or affords new efficiencies or affords new opportunity in business terms. So how do we uncover what those things are, and how do we expose them to the marketplace? We can do that with the help of standards. Standards are not the same as regulations. Regulations are given. Standards actually emerge from industry, and they're cooperative. And they change with time. They're not like set in stone once and never change. They're actually rewritten as needs be. So does that help you?
Yeah, thank you. Mm-hmm.
So these are some of the organizations in Europe that we're talking about. So the blockchain partnership, blockchain service infrastructure, the new EU digital service infrastructure. There's a new blockchain regulatory sandbox. You kind of need your country to have embraced and to be running a version of the sandbox. But if you are, definitely encourage you to get some agri-food use cases in there. There's a lot of very, very interesting things. Spain is quite active. I'm sure the Netherlands is. I'm sure they are. And I'm very sure that there's a lot of fintech examples there. But in terms of food safety and compliance, this is a really obvious one. And to get use cases in there. Because they become published and they become adopted across the different nation states in Europe. So the SDOs, which are standards development organizations, Sansanelec, NETSI, ISO, ITU, IEEE, UN. There's a thing called the EU Standardization Rolling Plan, which has loads of stuff about AI, quantum, all the cool stuff, cybersecurity, you know, whatever you're having yourself, that's all in there, and blockchain is in there as well. Industry representation, finance, supply chain, software, and law, so INAPA, UBOF. There's an organization called the EU Digital SME Alliance. If any of you are SMEs, I don't think you are. Stand ICT is another organization that's been around for a while. Stand ICT is a little bit similar to CBLOX. It provides standards researchers with funding, pay for their time, putting forward a contribution. As with all of us, the opportunity cost of doing this kind of stuff is the barrier, really. So Europe is providing funding support for researchers. So it can be formal researchers, academic researchers, it can be marketplace innovators, and you can author a use case, you can make a contribution to some kind of, let's say, cloud, IoT, edge thing with blockchain or anything else. Stand ICT is for all ICT. CBLOX is specifically for blockchain. So these are things to just have a look at. The impact, talking about impact, the pathway to transparency and trusted trade. This is what the CBLOX project hopes to impart. They're championing European innovation and emerging standards through coherence and quality in research. There's trade facilitation with interoperable blockchain and EU digital infrastructures. So the organizations that are listed, the ecosystem, which is wider, this concept of internationalization. CBLOX will be showcasing some of the work or the research that is emerging in the US and in Australia in particular. We're taking, at the moment, despite my own interest in food and agri-food, at the moment the interests are fintech and smart energy. So that's what we'll be focusing on. Anybody here wanted to
push forward with the food thing, I would be very happy to insert that focus in there as well. Ecosystem innovation in the global commons, it's kind of like a European thing, multifaceted ecosystem support around common issues like digital sovereignty, privacy, the other stuff like the oceans, health, public health, new market development and discovery. See a couple of the links and so they're on Twitter. The LinkedIn page is there, and it's just called cblocks.eu. Funding is available from now, so have a look there if you're interested, and particularly if you know, I'm very keen to get startups involved. So I know you're doing your Agri Accelerator, and the funding's not huge, but it's a couple of grand to make a contribution, and it's a named contribution, and they'll get a profile, and they can publish, and they'll be speaking, and all that kind of stuff. So there's a nice quid pro quo there as well. Okay, niche. The niche is to respond to Peter's comment about blockchain. This is not the first time we've been on the same stage. So these are the niches that we selected for cBlocks. And these come from the technical specification that was published in ISO for what are the features of blockchain. Identity management. If these are the things you're trying to solve for, handling identity management. Number 2, establishing data provenance. 3, creating autonomous governance. 4, token and asset creation and exchange. I mean, this, like, you could talk for a week about one. Process optimization, automation, cybersec, game theory, cryptography kind of stuff, consensus mechanisms, use cases. Given that the foundations are more or less set in stone, these are kind of these are the real focus areas that we're encouraging people to have a think about for blockchain, specific use cases or specific advances in these areas. If you scan it, that's my LinkedIn, so get in touch. I'm pretty responsive there if you've got any questions about cBlocks and standardization.
Yeah, thank you, Fiona. Very nice presentation. My question is exactly related with this last part of your presentation and linking with the Peter observation, because it's not new, this statement that people say. So I remember that in this project, during meetings with companies to create awareness and to discuss all together about this, I remember that Pescanova is a very big fishing company, not only in Spain, but around the world. And they say, okay, blockchain is very nice, but we have already, this is not a problem for us. We have enough tools for, in that case, not only traceability in fish is a problem, as you know, but not only that, but as well, for example, to include in the traceability, for example, the carbon fingerprint of fishing, other ethical issues related with bycatch, exactly, this kind of thing. So, and my point is, maybe, do you think that could be blockchain? We are overkilling the topic. So my point is not maybe could be a more, very sophisticated technology for problems that could be solved in a easy way.
I think you make a really good point, and I think the fishing industry is an excellent example. Which is, at an industrial level, it's highly mechanized. And there's a lot of technology deployed, right, between radar and sonar and all that kind of stuff. I would say that the most sophisticated or most apt application of something of blockchain in a system like that is not on a boat. It's in the management of big data. You have a lot of information coming in from catches, from fleets, from weather reports probably. I mean, there's a whole bunch of information that you can imagine there, that if what you're trying to do is create a meaningful record that has some kind of monetary value for, let's say, a fishing trip, a fishing catch, a fishing, whatever way you want to bundle it or parcel it, there's some analysis that needs to happen on the data related to that trip, the catch and everything else. And you can capture that and encapsulate it, let's say, in an NFT. It doesn't have to be, it's just that an NFT is highly transferable, highly tradable. You can't change it, you can with any other kind of system, even like a signed report or something like that. You know, it can be faked or whatever. But when we're talking about sophisticated digital systems, dealing with just-in-time deliveries and all that kind of stuff, you want a trusted digital transfer. And if you're going to create something like a carbon metric, what would we call it, of a fishing trip? I'm sure that's not the right way of saying it, but a catch or something like that. You would be able to do that.
Catch.
Yeah, and or a tuna.
Yeah.
And then fractionalize it for per steak or per purchase for a restaurant. You could absolutely do that with the transfer of NFTs. Absolutely.
Yeah, to add, at the moment we are opening fish chain. So at the moment, so we have like working on olive chain, we have juicy chain, and now we're in cacao, and now we're working on fish chain. And so Oceana from South Africa, they're really interested in see like, okay, how can we basically manage the catches? How can we see? And they said, if you can solve for me that we have a problem, for example, somebody says, hey, this batch is not good. Can you tell me why? And he says, if you can solve that, I can easily find out why that's not a good catch, and I can refer it back to the boat or whatever. He's like, then that's magic. So we're now applying, I think, for the DHI, I think it's called, a subsidy. And they, Oceana and the other company, gave a letter of intent. So probably together we can explore it and then start building it. Yeah. But it's not easy.
No, it's not easy, and they're multi-party cooperative systems.
Yeah.
And when I hear things like that, you know, the cybersecurity SOC service, Sentinel, and if you know, you buy into it and you get a 24/7 SOC for your company, and you have a dashboard and something happens on one of the devices, you get this asynchronous note to say blah 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 happened, and you know, hopefully they've removed it from your system. But it's something like that. What you want is asynchronous update where you can dig in, and if you need to know something more, there's some guy at the end of the email or some chick at the end of the email who's going to give you that answer. I think that's the kind of really helpful just-in-time service that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that you need a blockchain to do that, but if what you want to do is valorize it, if you're going to have a value on each piece of information or each catch, and you want to bundle in particularly climate-facing information or food safety information or public health information, or you know, this kind of stuff, and it has a transferable, tradable value, because carbon footprint stuff does, well then I think looking at tokenization or virtual assets is an interesting prospect. That's only one thing.
I remark Peter first.
Yeah, I'm going to become very unpopular today, because after every single person, I'm going to say what you're describing is traceability. It has nothing to do with blockchain. This is a traceability. This is a traceability system. These are properties of a good traceability system.
Yeah.
And I not only I've worked with Pescanova. I know them. I wouldn't say well, but we've been in 2 projects with them, and they're saying the same thing. Fish industry is like the home industry for us in Norway, fish and fish farming. And the mistake that we make collectively, and I'm certainly part of this, is that when we talk about technology, we focus on the aspects of technology and all these aspects that you have shown that I am personally very enthusiastic about. But the thing we should always start with is, what problem am I solving for you? What problem do you agree that you have? And what is it that I'm giving you that can solve this problem? And with blockchain, it's even more specific than that. What problem does a blockchain-based system solve that the traditional system does not solve? And there is an answer to that, but it's much smaller. This answer is much smaller than all the stuff we're talking about. But again, as I said, I'm not going to be popular saying this, but
Oh, very popular.
yes,
I'm all with you.
I think a lot of
I think
subscribers.
so, and I mean, I think IBM in particular, the experiences with Food Trust, for example, you know, a blockchain-based system is great if you need a multi-party cooperative system.
Yes.
If you don't need that, don't use it. It's massively redundant. It's kind of specialized. It's not terribly difficult, but it's a bit specialized, and often requires a re-engineering of your business model. It's not business as usual. You probably don't need it for business as usual. If you're facing something new, contested environment, a new kind of cooperative approach, for example, incorporating, you know, net zero outcomes or impacts or something like that, which is still completely unproven, and we're hardly even agreed about what, you know, what does it mean, net zero fishing, what does that mean? I think it's impossible, right? But I mean, like, what could it possibly be? Or a low carbon footprint for fishing. Nobody's agreed on what that is. If we're going to get there, maybe there's some kind of multi-party cooperation that we can facilitate with big data, with AI, autonomous decision-taking systems, at the edge, and with some kind of blockchain trust layer. There's absolutely value here.
By the way, you have one of such example on your list as well. The decentralized identity does not need a blockchain.
But, you know, cybersecurity doesn't need a blockchain either.
No.
But the multi-party cooperative system with a trust layer on the internet, there's a value there. The tokenization thing, we like looking at DeFi and crypto, the strong growth in stable coins. That whole, like, DeFi is just one use case for blockchains. The tokenization of value and assets is one use case, and it's I don't even want to put a value on it, but it's worth billions. Even in this bear market, it's worth billions. 20 years ago, that wasn't even a market.
I'm very interested in one of the niche markets, that's data provenance, I think.
Data provenance.
Yeah, it's on one of the
Yes,
niche.
yeah.
So we are doing research and we collect a lot of data, and we often have to prove where the data come from, who is using it. So I think that whole chain of custody of our data. And I was just wondering how it's, do you have any experience with that?
So I build systems that we track things like that. I would say they're a proof of concept, so they're quite small. I would imagine that you're talking about hypothesizing about much larger industry-wide kind of systems. It's a little, so the simplest way that I've come up with of doing it is encapsulating some kind of data, critical data, mission critical data maybe, into an NFT. And that becomes the transport vehicle of that decision or that critical data, or that it's past some point or some provable aspect. So I use NFTs to encapsulate that. No, you don't need an NFT to do it. Object-oriented programming shows us we can encapsulate anything. You know, so if there's something valuable in your system, you can tokenize it, and then it can mean something else. What gives it meaning is your business model.
I'm definitely going to discuss about this later in a panel, because we are thinking about using tokens to represent biodiversity or other quite critical issues that are, you need to prove it with data, but then you need to prove the data itself.
Authenticity of who that, so decentralized identifiers, proof of identity, identity management, credentializing. These are things that all systems require, but in this context of multi-party systems, where we're facing into an accelerated, for a few different reasons. I'm not a climate panic person, but we can see climate change happening around us all the time. I don't think there's any question about that. If we're going to take actions, and if there's going to be a carrot and a stick from industry, in response to that, where we need to measure and prove what we're doing. So IBM or people like me, we're building systems to help people capture that data or make some kind of proof, evidence base. Well, then you can see that all these questions about how do we prove who you are, how do we prove that you did what you say you did, and why is this different to what happened before? And it's because we're in this global digital marketplace where almost everything, all of these pressures are multi-party extra organizational pressures. It's not just me and the government and the taxman. There's industry-wide pressures, and there's global reporting, maybe there's going to be such a thing. If you want to get your bank loan and you're a farmer, maybe you're going to have certain criteria in place, or maybe you get preferential treatment if you're meeting whatever climate facing. We don't know what's going to happen there. Maybe none of that's going to happen. We're not very.
You know, we are actively working on that. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's really, really interesting. One thing I think, unless we absolutely lose electricity, right? If we lose electricity, well then digital transformation halts. If we don't, we are only getting faster, more complex, bigger data sets, more digital requirements. That is the way it's going. And how to valorize that, how to capture value in that. Some of that can be big, organized, government level. Some of it can be small, niche, curated, you know, Web3 hipsters with their organic diet, and they want to, it means something to them to be able to prove something like that, or have proofs, or not just photos on Instagram of what they ate for their dinner, but you know, there are meaningful parts to that in society, as well as in business, as well as in the management, the larger scale management of these things. So yes, I mean, it's a much deeper conversation. Can you use blockchain around data provenance? You can. Data authorship, data custody, data usage, all of those things. There is a role there for blockchain. It's up to you and your business model to determine whether you go that way or not.
I had a question about one of the comments you made in the context of, I think it was the Crowdfield Companion project. You delivered a solution with features, and as soon as you did, requests for other features came up. And I was wondering if there was an underlying challenge here for technology providers, as many of these deployments are quite tailored, right? And I was wondering, do you have a take on the need for customization and how that may affect the ability to scale these solutions across, different scenarios? Do you see this as a challenge?
It's a challenge. So if your business is to provide omni-channel infrastructure, omni-channel as in multiple channel communication, facilitate that, a sort of unified, similar user experience across various different platforms, channels, APIs, everything else. If that's your business, well then I think customization is your business. It's not my business. So I do podcasts, but I didn't make them in Catalan or anything like that, I shared that information back to that community. I think if those farmers want that, I think one of those guys should set up a podcast. That's really what should happen there. And there's plenty of people there who could and would do that, with a little bit of support from those researchers, do a Lex Friedman with the scientists coming on speaking in Catalan. I mean, that would just be amazing, right? If you're building, we used a living lab model for that participative open innovation research. And that's really about actors coming on board, participating, and really bringing something in the face of deadlines. A really clear deadline. We accept all ideas, but we didn't deliver on. Customization, I mean, they would say in crypto, they say the retail market is death by 10,000 cuts. And in software and SaaS provision, customization is death by 10,000 cuts. You've got to work out what the business model is.
we have a short coffee break.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's it, Marcel, basically. Okay, now we're going to have a panel session, a round table of discussion. And for that, I'm going to call to the stage, no? Peter, Lan, and Gero to participate in this. What is the title? We will stand in.
Where do we stand in the food blockchain?
Okay. So, okay, Peter, you're going to sit here.
Oh, you have your glasses.
No worries. It's portable. Okay, maybe we can start by Peter to introduce a little bit, to be provocative, a little bit provocative.
I don't know. I was asked 15 minutes ago whether I do the presentation, so this is very improvised. Let me first say that, firstly, I am a blockchain enthusiast. I am.
No doubt. No doubt.
I absolutely am. I'm interested and fascinated by a lot of the stuff that goes on in the blockchain world. I mean, there is a surprisingly high amount of politics and even religion in there, I have to say. To look at the debate on block size, for instance, and I'm chairing a Norwegian network project for the food industry called Block.net, and we had a meeting almost a year ago, and two other people who attended there were, how should I put this, BSV fanatics. That was really something. I went, wow. I mean, if you haven't, BSV is blockchain Satoshi vision. I'm not going to go into this, but I'm going to say on all these other issues, I'm interested and fascinated, but I can't speak from any sort of scientific perspective because while I'm a programmer, I haven't actually done programming. But the field where I feel a bit competent to talk is on the intersection between traceability and blockchain, because we're talking about the current state now for blockchain in the food industry. There's lots of stuff we can use it for. It can be used, for instance, to authenticate laboratory certificates and stuff like that. I can't call myself an expert there, but I have worked for a very long time with traceability, and I'm including starting writing traceability systems from scratch and then helping lots of companies in the food industry to do traceability. So let me just remind you as a background, without doing a whole lecture, that a traceability system has 3 components. So when I go into a company, and either to analyze it or to help them, I look at the following 3 components. So if we're talking about blockchain basis for traceability system and advantages, it needs to help in one of the following areas. The first thing, and normally I do an animated thing and do lots of slides here, but you get the short version in one slide now. But first you need to identify, TRUs is traceable resource unit. It's basically the thing that you're tracing, okay? So first you need some sort of mechanism to identify it. And there's lots of stuff I could say there. I mean, you need to make decisions with respect to code type and structure, uniqueness and granularity, physical association. I'm really interested, in fact, in the IBM Crypto Anchor initiative, where you actually tie the identifier to the TRU in such a way that it cannot be removed. But that's not what I'm going to talk about. I will. Fine. But in all traceability systems, you need identification. Normally, it's the label or a QR code or RFID chip or something. So before you do anything else, this is what you need. And blockchain can't really help you here. I mean, you need to do this anyway. I've never seen the food industry utilizing blockchain in a way that helps in this area. Then sort of next thing you need to do is to document the transformations in the system. So basically, a traceability system, if you've seen one in use in industry, you can normally ask them can you show me your traceability tree? That is a tree structure that shows all the units being merged together and split up, that they have an overview of, from raw materials going in through all the processes and If it's a vertically integrated company, you can see it throughout the chain. So it's basically the documentation that I received unit number 120 and 121 to make what I call 122, and this one I merged together with 312 to make this one, and this split up. And I could show you real screenshots, but I'm not doing that. This is basically documenting the joins and splits and merges that happens in the tree, in the supply chain. And only then, only if you have these two in place, do you get to the stuff that people normally associate with traceability, which are the attributes of whatever it is you're tracing. And here you can have, and that's for me really the least interesting bit. Because as a computer scientist, you can have one or you can have 1,000 data elements there. I don't care. It's just a list of attributes. It's just, this is the species, this is the gear type, this is where it was caught, this is whatever, this is whatever. But I find when companies talk about traceability, it's this thing they're talking about. Okay, fine. As a computer scientist, that's trivial for me. I mean, I'm interested in partly in this part, but mostly in this part, actually. So, without giving a lecture, let me just say that blockchain can, to a very limited part, help you with this. Not really, but it can help you through inheritance, in that if you have a transparent chain-wide blockchain system, then some attributes can be inherited, like for instance species. We discussed briefly now in the break, for instance, the horse meat scandal. And obviously, if a blockchain system had been in place, the guy here in Netherlands who actually bought horse meat and relabeled it as beef, he couldn't have done that in the blockchain, because that's one of the things you know is inherited. I mean, the attribute of your output element, the species of it needs to be the same as the input element. There's no process that changes species. You see what I mean? I mean, admittedly, this could also be done in an advanced normal traceability system. But actually, I think it's here on the documentation on transformations where the biggest potential benefit of blockchain is. And this is something I've hardly seen discussed. I mean, we've submitted a paper on this, because while I of course know that any system can do anything if you tweak it enough, of course it can. Inherently, a blockchain system is designed to record transactions, state changes, whereas a traditional database, a relational database, is traditionally designed to record state values. This is the value of this thing just now. And while, of course, I know you can do both with both, you can use blockchain for state and so on, it's stronger. It has home ground advantage if you use it for the thing it's designed to do. And actually, the transformations that is in the traceability system, if you understand what I mean with transformation, merging and splitting up together, those very closely map the transactions that the blockchain system is designed to store. So it's a very nice fit. There are other advantages also, but I just wanted to point this out. These are the components of a traceability system. Blockchain can, to a limited degree, help here, but it's a good fit here, I have to say. I've been doing this, let's see. No, that's where we were. One more. It's not showing. I'm changing it on this screen, but it's not changing here. No.
Share.
So it's. Stop sharing. No, but
that was my solution as well.
Try.
It's better than repeat.
Yes, the computer guy. Very good.
the one computer guy in the room. Yeah.
I've got so many computer people.
There, fine. Very easy, very easy.
It just appears.
Please take my place.
No, wait.
No, just to the side, yeah.
Sideways.
Yes.
Fine. Okay, fine. The other thing I wanted to mention, and that's the thing I've been harping on with respect to what people claim about blockchain. When I started with traceability system, it looked like this. Okay, this is 30 years ago I started with this. So people started doing, well, they had things on paper, and they were gradually moving to using a database instead. And then I worked in traceability when people started doing this, an EDI, and certainly when companies start doing this with central database. And of course, we had gotten to this stage, distributed databases and chain traceability without telling you the whole stuff. And now we have blockchain. Now, my point with this is, if you're going to argue for blockchain, you need to compare this one with this one, and not this one with this one. That makes no sense. That is cheating. There's so much cheating going on. Or you, at best, you compare this one with this one and say all the nice properties this one has that this one doesn't have. You need to compare this one with this one. Otherwise, your argument makes no sense. Okay, that was the second thing. Let's see. It leads to, both of these are real quotes from industry magazines. It's estimated that 1 in 10 food products are adulterated or mislabeled. With blockchain, tampered products can be easily identified and isolated, preventing expensive product recalls. Wow, fantastic. In the Walmart blockchain project, it took 2.2 seconds to trace mangoes to the farm. Without blockchain, this would take 6 days, 18 hours, and 26 minutes. This is total bullshit. This has nothing. Anyone making claims like this is doing people who like blockchain a disservice. That's rubbish.
Surprisingly precise, the 26 minutes.
No, I mean, it is fairly easy to understand where they get it from, because they're comparing this system probably with this one.
Right.
Okay, that's where they. So this was the number in the system.
Although days, maybe that one.
Yes, yes, sure. So they did. This was the number in the old system. I'm not even doubting the numbers. I'm just saying you're not comparing this one with this one. You're comparing this one with an old system. So there was a company here, well, Walmart or someone in their supply chain, who used the chance, who had an old system, probably this one to be quite honest, in some form. And when they went to blockchain, they used the chance to go all the way here, but then they compared this one with this one and said this is the advantages of blockchain. No, it isn't. They could have gone here and gotten exactly the same. Fine. So we agree on this. I can't do the whole what's actually the difference, but a very brief overview of what remains then. What are the differences if we compare like with like? How about data quality and veracity in the two systems? Does blockchain offer an advantage? Yeah, I think so. Partly because of the trust layer. I work quite a lot with food fraud. Even if you completely disregard the analytical methods and control mechanisms, I would tend to trust a claim in a blockchain system more than I trust a claim in a relational database system because of the provenance of the data. If let's take a claim that can't really be verified analytically easily, like organic, fair trade, or whatever. If someone lied about that, if they lie in a traditional system, it's really difficult to find out who lied or who changed it after the fact. But because of the immutability and because of the link to identity, it's perceived as far riskier, and it is far riskier to lie in a blockchain system. So sure, I would give blockchain a significant advantage here. Trust and transparency, sure. It depends on type of blockchain. It depends if you have if you have a proof of stake or proof of work, if it's federated or not. I mean, a lot of the companies look into federated blockchains, but it's sort of, yeah, I would give a small advantage to that. How about data confidentiality, ability to provide shared data access? Yeah, I know blockchain can do that, but that's not what it was designed to do. You have to do that in the application layer more. Blockchain is designed to share data. And if you want to provide tiered access and do confidentiality hierarchies, you need to do it in the application layer. I would say that's easier to do in a traditional database. You are allowed to disagree here. You're not allowed to disagree with all I'm saying, but that one is more a feeling. I can't document that.
I think you can do it at an architectural level as well.
Yeah, but it's
big.
It's what it's designed to do. It's the home ground advantage again. I mean, you can easily do immutability in a traditional system. I mean, it's a flag in most databases, but that's not what it's designed for. So I would give advantage to its hardware. Performance efficiency, no, it's if you need speed, blockchain is incredibly inefficient. I mean, surely we don't need to agree about that, especially if you have blockchain with small block sizes. Robustness, fault tolerance, well, there's a built-in redundancy because of distributed nature. But again, that's also by traditional systems. Probably the biggest advantage, and that was mentioned before we had a break here.
It's greener.
Yes, it's greener because it's the biggest advantage, I think. Anyone, and I've been here myself, anyone ever tasked with trying to integrate data from different relational databases? You talked about the death of 1,000 or 10,000 cuts. Wow, that is a headache. It's so much easier to integrate data. So if I was Walmart, as was mentioned here, it would be, or certainly if I was working in the IT department in Walmart, it would be fantastic for me if all my suppliers started delivering data on blockchain rather than starting delivering data from a relational database and task me with trying to integrate the data. That's headache number one. So interoperability. But as we discussed before we broke, not everyone needs that. But if you're downstream and you have lots of suppliers, that's a really big advantage, which is one of the reasons why some of the retailers are some of the drivers there, because they stand to benefit. Anyway, I probably said more than I should already. There's more stuff in 2 reports we made that's online. But that's more was my introduction.
Thank you. Finish our deliverable.
Okay, we can pass to the next, and after that we can do a short roundtable if you will.
Okay. Who's the next? Me, for example. All right.
That was helping. It's good to have IT people here.
Do you want to do it? I'm sharing already. So we just need this picture there.
Again, very easy.
Okay, I think this should be good enough. Okay, thank you. All right, so I understand, Peter, that you're out for a fight, but for that you said too many things I agree with, I'm afraid, so I can't do you that favor. Except, maybe surprisingly, your last point is the only one I disagree with. I don't see the advantage of blockchain with interoperability because I don't see the difference between trying to interoperate with the centralized database or trying to interoperate with the blockchain. The integration work is exactly the same, right?
If you have many suppliers, if you have many centralized database, I agree. But if you have many suppliers, if you have data coming from 100 sources to you,
yes.
Well, we can discuss that later.
Yeah, sure. So maybe we get a little fight. That's nice. And I appreciate that you looked at the blockchains from such a fundamental angle. That is really refreshing. And so I'm not going to try and best you, but I'm just going to shamelessly plug the project that we've been working on some time ago. And you already mentioned it and set me up. It's these crypto anchors. So the question that we try to answer in this context is how do we, it's nice that information that's been committed to a blockchain cannot be changed anymore without a lot of effort. And so, which is the basis for the trust that you also mentioned, Peter, right? But the question that we try to answer is how do we make sure that the data in the blockchain actually reflects what's out there in reality? And we did a project in the past where we were wondering about IoT sensors and how we can, in a trustworthy way, confer information from a sensor into the blockchain. But this one here is about identifying things, and maybe that goes a little in the direction of the meat case with the horse meat that you mentioned, right? It's not enough to say this is beef. But it would also be important to know that the piece of meat that I'm looking at right now actually belongs to that record on the blockchain. And so that's the physical digital link that we talk about up there that we try to protect. And as we looked into this, we found that there's actually a lot of work in that space already. So we found a lot of approaches of, I mean, starting with paper money, right, with all these security features, if you still remember paper money, I'm sure. So that had a lot of security features on it, ink, holograms, what have you. We have RFID tags that are cryptographically protected, not all of them, of course, but the most advanced ones have cryptography so that you cannot copy them easily. And there are even some methods that some of our colleagues worked on to optically identify surfaces, for instance, right? If you have an object that has some surface property that is not the same from object to object, you can interpret that kind of directly as a fingerprint of that object. Say you have a piece of metal and that has a trace of the milling equipment that was used to produce it, right? That is not the same because the milling machine just is slightly different every time. Then you have a direct fingerprint that you can maybe visually inspect. So all these technologies, and we tried to look at them more fundamentally and decided that we would call them crypto anchors because they kind of anchor can anchor a digital representation, a digital identity of an object to the physical object and really securely link the two. So what do they have in common? They are kind of fingerprints of these physical objects that are hard to clone, right? If you could just copy them, it would be kind of pointless. They are hard to forge, so you cannot just create one and claim it's the real thing. And they are hard to transfer to another object, from a genuine object to a copy. They secure identifiers, so you have the fingerprint itself is typically not the identifier. If you think about your passport, right, your identifiers are actually what's written in your passport, and your fingerprint just links you as a person to that passport. So we have both. If we look at this here, we have an identifier and we have a physical anchor. That's the fingerprint that confirms that this identifier actually belongs to this physical object. And then that gets us from a pure identification, anybody can show my passport if they get access to it, to authentication, where really only I can convincingly present the passport as my own. And in IT terms, what that typically looks like is that I have a reference database somewhere that knows which fingerprint or crypto anchor to expect for which identifier. And so if somebody claims an identity, they have to send me, or a scanner has to send me the identifier and the fingerprint, and the secure reference database knows whether those two belong to each other or not. And only if they match, then we have a secure authentication. What does it look like in practice? Often, of course, people try to do this with apps. In the RFID case, it's pretty straightforward. Here we have a visual tag. Just imagine that this would be applied to an object that we want to authenticate. And so this app scans it with this little hologram here. So this is kind of the identifier, and this hologram is the fingerprint. This app scans both of them together, compares it with the reference database. And if it's the real thing, then we get this beautiful check mark. And of course, then you can build applications based on that. And now the one big problem that we still identified is that there's this zoo of different technologies to do this authentication that are not interoperable, right? If I go back one, just one, then this software, again, is a stack that's completely different from any of the other technologies we saw. But if we want to build applications on top of this, like traceability of any sort, for instance, then we need to be independent of the particular technology. And so we want to establish interoperability in this market where you can come with any authentication technology that an application finds acceptable, and can use it there and plug it in. And so that's where the blockchain came in for us. So we set out to build a blockchain-based platform. Blockchain because it is composed of, this market is composed of many different stakeholders that we want to come together around this interoperability idea. And so we built this on a blockchain where we can plug in this individual software stacks and scanning approaches for the different authentication technologies at the bottom, and towards the top we make available a uniform API that people can use to build applications assuming an authenticated object, or basically using this API to verify that the objects they're presented with can be authenticated with any of these technologies down here. And so That then gives these applications up here, supply chain management, provenance tracking, consumer engagement, which goes more in the metaverse direction that we heard earlier, product certification, like quality certifications, metadata repositories like which the centralized databases that Peter had on his slides could provide, right? Any of these could then be provided with the secure object identification and authentication through these plugins. We can even mix and match different crypto anchors. So whatever the best crypto anchor physically for an object is, we can use that, and we can even use multiple crypto anchors for a single object if that is required. And on top of that, something that doesn't say on the slide, we actually also have functionality in here that is kind of an NFT. So we can tie a physical object with a person and say this person is the owner, for instance, of it. But it could also just be a custodian or someone who's tasked with shipping an object from A to B. So it's even possible to do that with different roles, not just ownership, with which an NFT is typically associated with. And so that's a pretty powerful way to link the physical world to the blockchain, not to the blockchain, but to the virtual world in general. And what do applications look like? Well, we built one application that connects this identification platform or authentication platform with a logistics kind of tracing mechanism. So here you see a list of different locations where the same object has been scanned. The red one here indicates that one of the scans were not successful. So maybe that is an object that just claims to be this one and it's really another one. And you can then, of course, display that on a map. So in Stuttgart, we have counterfeiters. Be very careful there. And that actually allows you, right, to give you an idea of where in the world maybe you have a problem with counterfeiters seeping into your supply chain. So that would be one way, one value that this could provide. Another example is more on the consumer side. If I have a high value good, I could facilitate a secondhand market for this, right, where a buyer is interested in some maybe a handbag, an expensive one for several €1,000s. And they can now scan the crypto anchor to ensure the authenticity. And with the system, the seller can also prove that they are actually the legitimate owner of this handbag, so you don't buy it from a thief. And if they agree on a price and the buyer has paid, then the seller can pass the ownership for this authenticated good to the buyer, and then that's the new owner of the thing, right? So again, adding some value on top of this authentication of the physical good. And then, this is my last slide, you can imagine that you can use this for all sorts of applications throughout the life cycle of a product, starting with the sourcing, responsible sourcing to farmers or miners, through the processing in the manufacturing process, or actually this is still raw material processing, there's a manufacturer, through the logistics chain, through warehouses and carriers, to a resale store, where, for instance, a consumer can already verify that they're being sold the real thing. Then you can think of some consumer engagement that requires me to prove that I have an authentic good and that I'm the owner of it. And then I would get access to I don't know, video content with a Disney character that's on my backpack or something like that. The second-hand market already mentioned. All this around a digital twin as well. It would be a nice way to connect this securely to the digital twin of that object. And we can even think of this going through recycling, where we can reliably trace raw materials to the recycling source to show that it's not a new material but has been reclaimed. And I would leave you with that.
Nice.
Good.
I have much to add. Is there a live, do you have a use case? You can show?
A use case?
Yeah, like is there a brand, for example, that handbag that is using this?
Aha, not really.
No.
So I mean, I stopped working on this a couple of years ago already.
Okay, yeah.
And I think we were a little early for the market to be as far as picking that up.
Yeah.
That's what we found.
Save your questions for later.
Oh, sorry.
So I don't have a lot of technical details because I'm very happy that you have explained all the things that are underneath what we see, I have basically one message. I think in the future, if we think of blockchain and applications, basically it's about bringing the food system into the token economy. So that was my one message. I'll elaborate a little bit. So if we look at this project, TrustEat, we started thinking about bringing food supply chain and connect it with blockchain. Actually, if you look at food supply chains, we look at multiple chains. We are actually looking at food system. So I think the logical next step is to look at the food system. How can we use blockchain to improve the food system? And if we look at the system, I think we can, of course, everything is connected. We can still identify 3 different layers. First of all, we have physical layers, because food, we still need to be able to feel it, digest it. So we have physical layer, which we use plant and animals to produce food and eventually help us to have a good life. And to manage the system, actually, we need to, before we can control, optimize, we need a digitalization process. We need to get the information from the food system and get relevant data through measurements and analytical methods. So I think we need a digital layer. And then the next step is to combine the digital layer with all kinds of, policy, economics into applications. And that is where the focus for our work, our institute is. So we look at the applications of blockchain in food systems. And you guys just said, as people working on technology, you tend to fall in love with technologies. And as economists or sociologists, people are in other fields, we tend not to love technologies. I think from our institute, I try to play the role of qubits to bring technologies to the real world so that they also can at least marry each other, not with or without the love for technology. So that's our focus. And we have identified many fields of application, so on different layers. And in particular, in this knowledge-based project, so we look at the problems at every stage of supply chain, from raw material to eventually to the consumer. We look at every stage, what problems there are and what problems are specifically solvable or even better to be solved by blockchain. So that was our focus in our research. And to go back, so we look at actually the layer, application layer, to see where we can bring the best technology to the most urgent, important problems. So that's our focus. And through this research, we realized that to have traceability, we need eventually tokenization, because we need to be able to trust the digital identities and digital, these digital descriptions of different attributes of products, transactions, in order to manage it. So we developed a framework to help map different elements in the physical supply chain to the digital world. So this is our broad tokenization framework. We believe that the future application of blockchain practically is about translating different elements of the food supply chain into tokens, and they use the beautiful technologies we created to manage those tokens to facilitate transactions and also other interactions. I think that's my 2 cents for the discussion.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think, well, we're going to open the floor for all of you. But just to start, I have a question, because after these 3 years of project, and we saw many cases for vinegars, wine, flowers, different cases, I wonder what, in your opinion, what could be the best use case for two reasons. First, for implementing this technology that as a success case, and secondly, what could be the most useful technology regarding the physical layer, so optical fingerprints or RFID or whatever you want, that we're going to start to evangelize the this technology in the food sector? What do you think? Use case and technology.
It's a good question. I mean, for use case, again, I think we need to go back to the question: what problem are we solving?
This is the question.
Yeah, we need to go into the different food sectors and say which of these sectors have a problem now that actually this technology that we know a bit about, all of us, could help solve. I mean, I work a lot with seafood because that's sort of what Norway uses most of in food. And fisheries is unique here because between 14 and 33% of all fish caught in the world is illegally caught and landed. It's an enormous amount. It's billions of euros every year. And that you don't really have that for others. I mean, there's a lot of dilution, counterfeiting, fraud going on with other foodstuffs like olive oil, which is substituted, or others I could mention. But this whole thing that there is a whole illegal supply chain out there, I mean, not only one, an enormous one, where, because what happens, of course, with this large amount of fish that is illegally caught and landed, is that it's not like they give it to their friends or sell it on the black market. It goes into the legal supply chain. It's mixed. That wouldn't make any sense otherwise. So there is systematic fraud going on. We have more and more people working with that. One of my colleagues is doing who's like a sociologist, is doing a PhD on that now. We've even done surveys asking people in the fish industry, A, do you cheat? B, how much? And C, how much does your neighbor cheat? And they say, yes, 5%, 10%.
And the neighbor says the same thing.
Yes. Yeah. So, fish is not ideal in some other respects that I won't go into. I mean, partly because you can't realistically track single fish. I mean, you can technologically, but you would never do it. That would not make sense.
This is a good point because maybe it's too much complex for starting. This is my point. No? It's clear that there is a problem, a big problem.
Yeah,
but the complexity could be a constraint. No?
You're right. So I'm. It's just I don't know if I'd known exactly the answer to what you were asking. I would probably go into that industry. I'm saying captured fish has this unique problem that blockchain technology could help with. However, there is an implementation challenge in that it's not one unit, it's lots of small units and so on. But there is a problem there that I believe blockchain could help with, especially since requirements for documenting that the fish is actually legally caught and landed are in place now and are being enforced. So there's not only a sort of an ethical problem. There is a real practical problem for the exporters. I need to show that my fish is legally caught and landed, that I can link it back to landing notes, and that the sums on the landing notes of number of kilos match the number of kilos I've given to you, and that I'm not reusing these landing notes to also sell to you, because that's what happens now. So that bit is well suited for blockchain, I would say, despite the other problem. But I'll leave the rest to you.
I would like to expand on that. So I completely agree, and you're pointing to a use case that I would like to add to Fiona's list of niches earlier, and that is certification. It's the fish quotas, for instance, right? It is something, if you could trace that reliably, if that's making sure that fish can be sold as part of a quota only once. You could think of that as using NFTs, right? That would be one way to use tokenization. You could have tokens. Every fisher could have an amount of token that represents their share of a quota, and they need to pass those tokens on with the fish they sell. And once they've passed the token on, they cannot present the same token to another one. That to me seems like a killer application from the properties of a blockchain. The big question we have to, and the same is true for organic certifications. If you have a farm that's certified organic, you also have an idea of the potential output of that farm. right? And that could be represented as tokens that a certification authority could give that farm, and then they can only sell organic bananas as long as they have tokens available, right? So that also solves that kind of problem. I find that really interesting. The big problem we have to solve there is the business problem. Who pays for that? Because there's still a significant cost setting up and operating such a system. And eventually, of course, the consumer needs to pay for this. And how do we make sure that the cost is passed on all the way down the supply chain from the farmer, from the fisher, to a consumer, so that this entire thing can keep going? That's the big open question for me.
Yeah. And who pays for that?
I am, as always, in total agreement with you. I think the best use case is tokenization. And we're looking at one possibility of tokenizing biodiversity, for example, in the Netherlands. Indeed, the business model and financing model is a huge challenge. What we're thinking is that we can create soft token markets. You can even think further. We have like biodiversity bank, in which people, when they really put effort, farmers in this case, when they put effort in conserving biodiversity, they can have a token, they can put it there, either to add to their account or convert it into currency. That is one way of financing it. So consumers or citizens, when they visit some area, they could opt for donating tokens to the sustainability or biodiversity bank. So that way you have a collective funding mechanism. That's the one thing we're looking at.
But that means to create a parallel system, no?
It is a token economy as in a regular economy. So you use tokens to facilitate sort of new value exchange, because there are billions of people who value biodiversity and there's value in it, but there's just a lack of mechanism to make sure that the person who values the biodiversity and the person who creates it, they can get matched, I think.
Let me add, I agree, tokenization, and you said certification. Let me just add one word or industry to that. I know that Eurofans, the laboratories are looking into blockchain to prevent unauthorized reuse of laboratory certificates, because again, you are a food producer, you have a discerning buyer that requires a certificate of a certain type from you that's costly for you. So what happens now and again is that you use the certificate for more than what you actually tested. You reuse the certificate. Even Eurofans reported that when they did physical certificates, they would actually use Blanco to change small numbers and change the batch number and so on. So I know Eurofans and probably others that are providing laboratory certificates for food industry are looking into tokenizing them to prevent their reuse of them, to ensure that they're only used once and for the amount that they actually are.
Perfect. Yeah. And what about the affordability of these sensor tags or labels? Because some of them, for example, the case of Gianmarco, no, is not so how do you scale up, no, for industrial purpose. I don't know. So it's just to open as well the discussion for the floor.
Yeah, I think it depends. In our case, yeah, for our sensor, it really depends on who we are interfacing with, because there are really very different opinions, like also on whether this data that we collect should be part of the people that are producing the food, or if this data can be somehow can go into a flow that can be passed on even within the blockchain.
But is the cost of digitalize the whole food value chain from the producers until the final app in the consumer is I think that is huge, no? Or could be huge. So I don't know.
Well, not to mention uptake of users actually providing data using the applications that are provided. Different issues. And then always these black markets, I mean, they have reasons to exist, and I don't know why they would want to stop to exist. So yeah, it's having an ideal food chain that is 100% traced. I don't believe in it.
But one advantage to the system that we just discussed is that it doesn't require the authentication of individual items, which would be a problem, as Peter pointed out anyway, right? But there you can go by mass balance. right? You get these tokens for a certain mass of produce.
1 to
and
100 kilos of food.
Exactly, right? And then you pass on tokens always along with the same weight. And even if somebody then mixes the original stuff with something else and keep the actually organic bananas for some other channel, well, in this other channel, they cannot prove that it's organic, even if it is, right? So there's nothing to gain for them. So the mass balance on this side of the chain gets us very far. And you can bring that all the way to the consumer, and you can even maybe you can educate consumers enough that they will demand to see the digital tokens that confirm the organic property of something as well. For other items, maybe you want to identify individual pieces of something. It's more intuitive, I think, in the luxury goods market, like the handbag I mentioned. Also because I think you touched upon that just now, Mireille, right? The question how to distribute the technology to the individual consumer to do the scanning.
Yep.
And if you have just an app that shows you in a trustworthy way the tokens that come along with your produce, that's maybe easier than if you have to have some scanning technology to verify a crypto anchor. So if you want a crypto anchor on a piece of meat, for instance, it really has to be extremely low cost, like the work that you are doing in INL with these luminescent things, right? That's really cool. That is very promising. It has to be that, and it has to be easily verifiable. So it must be possible to verify that with just an app, right? You cannot expect a consumer to have a device of any type along. That is something you can do in the supply chain, specialized food supply chains, where people do a lot of scanning every day. But at the consumer end, you need something that can do with an app. And that is part of the difficulty, I think, also we were facing in commercializing the technology I showed, right?
Let me add a bit to that, to the question, who will pay for this? If you remember the architectures I showed for traceability systems, okay, so blockchain was 6 and a similar system, non-blockchain was 5. I think it's difficult to find a lot of good use cases for the economics in going from 5 to 6. There are some, we've discussed them. But if you are on 3 or 4, which many food industries are, do you understand what I'm talking about? If you have a more primitive system, an earlier generation one, what we've actually tried at Nofima is to collect cost-benefit analysis done by companies for this. And that's unfortunately often very confidential information. We have collected about 5 of them. Yeah. We've not been allowed to publish them, but I can certainly refer to them. These were all done post-fact. So basically, the company had the traceability system higher, sort of a lower number, if you remember the diagram, and then they changed to one, but none of them were blockchain, by the way, but many of them changed to similar to blockchain, the number 5. And then they looked into what happened, what was the return on investment, what changed, and stuff like that. And for I think we have 5 of them. All of them reported return on investment of 18 months or less. They recouped the costs of changing the system in 18 months or less.
This is fantastic.
And the interesting thing is the reason for recouping the costs, even though the original driver might have been sort of a top level decision to do branding, or often a customer requirement. One of them, I can say, started selling to Marks and Spencer's, and they hadn't done that before. And Marks and Spencer said, you need much more better traceability than what you have now. It was typical. But the interesting thing, I thought, was that even though this was not the original reason for changing the system, they reported the biggest saving in better industrial statistics, more optimal production, less goods on storage, both of incoming, more just-in-time possibility for just-in-time production, and basically the sort of the operational things, where the things they thought they had a good and maybe optimized production system, but by investing in a much better traceability system, they really streamlined a lot of this. So the big savings, the quantified savings, I think for all 5 of them, are in those areas. Even even if it might have been food safety that was driving them, or possibility to recall or branding or whatever it was. But there are real savings there. But we've left blockchain now, by the way. But I mean, it happens also to be associated with blockchain if you're upgrading from an earlier system, if you see what I mean. You might I think there are very few companies that are on level 5 that I would recommend go to level 6. I don't have many business cases for that. But if they are on level 3 or 4 and they're changing anyway, I said, well, go blockchain. Well, I mean, you need to change anyway. So go blockchain. And then this would be part of the explanation of who covers the cost. You're going to get a lot of earnings by upgrading the system.
So in this case, Peter, the benefit, the return on investment came from the fact that the companies are collecting data they did not have in the same form before.
Yes, which made it possible to do much better industrial statistics, to study yield, do sort of correlation analysis, change parameters, discover how much was on storage, move to both of raw material and of finished goods, and basically optimize their production much more than they had. And they should have done that before, and probably could have done that before. But actually, introduction of a new traceability system was what made them do this.
There's also a social side, if I can mention a social side to that, because it means they have to collaborate with the partners in the chain to get that data. And it means they will optimize their processes and their collaborative efforts among all these steps. And it's not just about the data, but also having a more efficient collaboration within the value chain.
And from the consumer's point of view, do you think that is enough mature, the society or the market to accept this technology or to demand this technology?
That's a very good question. I would say right now, of course, we see it in the Netherlands on a few products. So, for example, we have orange juice that already has in one of the biggest brands of supermarkets that has a QR code with which you can trace the orange juice back to its source. So there are some experiments with it, but the research right now is really lacking, and I'm of course not sure how the research in brands itself is doing, but in the academic research we really don't have any real good studies that show if consumers would demand such information. That's difficult.
Hi, Liam.
Hi.
From startup land, we have a lot of information on this. The consumer is an interested stakeholder for sure. They're very protected in the European food value chain, food integrity, food safety, all that kind of stuff. They are not the people calling out for an app-based system. People who go shopping in the supermarket have a lot of information on the packaging. I know that it can be faked and whatever. And all of their cares, all of the things that they're passionate about their food is more or less printed on the packet already, right? You don't need a QR code to scan it to, know the brand. People don't read it. They don't care enough. They care on Saturday afternoon when they're not working and they buy organic for the weekend. And then on Monday, they go and buy, I do this. I'm a mom, I'm busy. I've built systems, put them into Tesco. You can get all the information. You can see the cows on the video camera. You do it once. Or I'm a nerd, so I like how much nitrogen was in the grass that the cow ate. I put it into an app. Even I checked twice, and I built it. Consumer does not care that much. They don't have time. They are a stakeholder. They are who we protect in the food system, but they're not a main mover here. Price is the biggest mover always for consumers, and it always will be. Are they the real people who should pay? They pay something, they're already paying. Yeah, so my question back to you guys then, and this is for you, on the tokenization system, you had two types of tokens. You had the tokenized aspect of the product or the tokenized product, but you also had this concept of governance tokens. And I'm wondering, did you do much thinking there? I think for the IBM use cases, IBM is like building the infrastructure and sees itself not quite centralized, but a provider of. And I don't think, or maybe I'm wrong there, maybe there has been that kind of tussling about governance in multi-party systems, you know, and tokenizing that. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that and how maybe Lan, if you're doing the.
I could give a start. We do look at governance tokens, for example, especially in the case of sustainability certification. So you can imagine at the moment we see different certification schemes in the market. People don't really know what they mean, what actually who's checking it. So we're looking at anything, if they mean anything at all. So we try to look at the way how different certification schemes are monitored, what kind of data are underneath it, and we can use certain tokens to see only certain data that have been validated by either independent Oracle or institute or other sources. Can they be tokenized as evidence? So that's a way to ensure that people can get more transparent information about sustainability information. So that's a governance token. It's very different from tokens that are more used for financing, for example. In your case, tokens are sold to many people so that you can get operational funds to start to build the application. So the governance tokens we're looking at are mostly funded by public-private partnerships, actually ideally by public authorities, because it's for public interest, public good. Indeed, as a society, you want to have a infrastructure with which you can validate data. So I think there's a lot of arguments in that to use public funding for that.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe building a little bit on what Fiona comments, and also coming back to the idea of tokenization of biodiversity, for instance, we might think that the consumer is paying for the service they are getting at the moment, but to be honest, it's not like that. Food production has like a lot of externalities that we are not taking into account in the moment. It doesn't mean that if we are looking at the future, these externalities are not going to be reversed in the product itself. And I think that this is something that we will somehow have to bring into the discussion because it is there and it's gonna be there in the near future. Which brings me, I'm really curious about what tokenization of biodiversity means. How do you account for biodiversity? How do you make sure that the consumer is paying for a biodiversity asset that it is located where? Because maybe we are valuing biodiversity in the Netherlands. But yeah, if the soya is produced in Brazil and then we don't have any system for having, I'm sorry, but it is it's one of the concerns that when we are talking about biodiversity, it's really challenging, and I really love the idea, but I think that it is extremely complicated. And yeah, I would really like to know more about that.
Can I answer the question, Lan, just before you answer? Yeah. I was wondering about the same thing earlier. So who would mint these tokens for what, and how would they be passed on? I would be very interested in that too.
Quick answer: there is a growing ecosystem of different stakeholders working on biodiversity. So there is a national biodiversity monitor that's being developed. Actually, there is an app. There's a website being built, so farmers can add what I have done to ensure biodiversity. So there's index being developed based on multiple data sources. So that is a joint effort, public-private partnership. It is actually already being funded because the Netherlands is struggling with a lot of problems with nature and degradation of nature. So it's more a local problem in the Netherlands than international biodiversity. It's more to stimulate farmers in putting effort in conserving wildflowers or not using a lot of pesticides. So that's the focus.
So there's a certification authority again, like in the fish use case.
There's a national authority on national ecological authority taking care of accounting of it. But I think they are working on the underlying databases. So our proposal is that to add this data provenance aspect to the underlying measurements, because there are people counting birds, counting trees, flowers. You can imagine, we let the farmers count in birds probably 3 times a day. So we need a lot of different data sources, and so that is ongoing discussion, concerted efforts in collecting underlying data. There are authorities on that.
Two small things. This is very interesting. Maybe another answer to your original question about what are good use cases for this. We do have some commodities that are completely generic, that you can't distinguish. There's no good quality and bad quality. To some degree, palm oil is an example of this.
Yeah.
To another degree, electricity is an example of this. And there is green palm oil and not green palm oil. And I don't know if you know how it works. It works through tokenization, I mean, for ages. Not blockchain. I mean, they've implemented the system. Basically, there's a huge lake in the world, virtual lake of palm oil. And if you are a certified green producer, then you get a certificate for how much you put into the lake. But this is mixed with all the other palm oil because you can't see the difference. And then if you are a buyer who wishes, for some reason, to tell your board or your customers that I'm only using green palm oil, you are then buying a token from this. There's no physical connection between the palm oil produced and the palm oil extracted. This is through tokenization, but this has been in place like 10 years now. So it's not blockchain tokenization. But that's a use case. That's really an area. Electricity is a bit of the same. There's green production of electricity, but and it's basically the electricity is all in a big virtual pool, if you see what I mean. There's no connection between the actual electricity the green producer produced and the one you're getting. But you can get a certificate if you want it. So both these are good examples of tokenization, I think.
I think so. And just to expand on that energy use case, and I wonder, is this for the biodiversity thing? I really like looking at one industry and seeing where we might apply it to another. For the creation of energy, there's a number, like really all over the world, a lot of applications looking at reconciliation on blockchain for microgrid services. So you could have solar panels on your roof or a wind farm, or it can be a small domestic unit, or it can be a larger mining or energy farming kind of situation, and you're providing energy back into the grid, and those reconciliations are being managed on blockchain-based systems because they can resell, they can provide their own secondary markets and reconciliation patterns using those NFT tokens or what other reconciliation mechanisms they like to use. And I can see something like that happening, almost like a biodiversity lake. And they can be small, smart, for example, in the CFC project, we had a smart cities initiative, which was local communities coming together to install something like an urban hedgerow, which was a native species biodiversity scenario in car parks, places where nothing was growing on top of buildings, this kind of thing. And you could create tokens out of that. And a local authority, for example, might support something like that. And that community in Spain, for example, in Catalonia, there was a proposal that the microgrid transaction thing created an opportunity to create a virtual carbon token that could be traded against your local taxes. So the value is not the feel-good value, which, to be honest, is very subjected to trend. It's just not long enough. It's kind of social flocking. We're going to do this cool thing this season. We're not going to do it next year. Whereas if you can trade it against your taxes or trade it against something else in your local community, supporting biodiversity or some kind of lower carbon footprint for your region, that kind of thing, you can really start to see this parallel economy that you kind of mentioned, a parallel approved token economy that has real value. That's exciting.
Maybe one more comment. We sort of disregarded the consumer as a driver here, and I agree mostly with what you say, but we're working now with a company, one of the biggest producers of salmon for the European market. They deliver 8 million consumer packages per year to the European market. They have a QR code that is linked to the badge rather than a generic one on each of these packages. They've had no campaigns associated with it. There's no promotion of it. They just started putting QR code. They report 1.5% scanning. So 12,000 people, 1.5% is not a lot, but there are 12,000 people, and this has been stable now over, I think, 3 years since they introduced
Peter, I
it.
don't think you can discount the fact that the competition between wild-caught salmon versus farmed salmon, I mean, that's a really meaningful difference in terms of product and consumer demand. There are some product lines, like I would say wine is another value chain that the consumer is highly informed and highly curious about provenance and heritage, soil quality, varietals, that kind
Maybe
of thing.
this is niches, no?
They're niches, yeah, but I think, for example, salmon, so Ireland, nothing like the Norwegian salmon industry, but similarly, wild salmon versus farmed salmon, there is no comparison between flavor and nutritional value, I would say, all that kind of stuff. I'm not sure about the nutritional value, but but the flavor.
I have colleagues who would disagree with you, but I'm not one of them.
I think there are certain, and then, but that's your business rationale, right? You were talking earlier, like what is the real push? How do you establish, how do you bound the scenario where the value proposition is sufficient? There's enough weight there. Sometimes it's you can't really generate that consumer concern. And if you do, it's a trend, like vegan makeup. Was makeup ever not vegan? I don't know, but that's I don't think you can buy makeup anymore without it being vegan, stamped vegan, right?
No, vegan. I think it's good that from this program, of our knowledge-based program, we're looking at also novel foods. So, you know, in a market, you have vegan foods. You would like to know what is indeed vegan. Can you identify some animal proteins in it? Yeah. So that could be another
completely novel food, like really novel sources of protein. And that kind of stuff. I mean, sometimes I think consumers don't want to know insect bars and things like that. But yeah, there's some really very, very interesting things happening in the future of food. That idea of tokenizing the information, the important information, and what is important, what's important to the consumer will change. But that vector, that messenger of transferring important information, that I think that's what you need the return on investment on. It's not that you will always share this type of information. The type of information is going to change. And I think we're moving into a scenario where the consumer becomes more like a prosumer. Maybe society is dividing a little bit. I think consumers demand more, want more customization, they want more say, they want more information. And I don't know if that's a trend or if that is the future of consumers. But yeah, I mean.
Well, we presume that consumers would like to know more about origin and processing methods, ingredients of food.
I'm not sure. It's a really small group. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I follow this discussion with interest. I think you're spot on, Fiona, that consumers in supermarkets and buying products are simply too busy processing a lot of information. Also, if you want to communicate something on a package, then it has to deal with the competition of other logos. Nutri-Score, Eco-Score is on the rise as well. So it's just a difficult conversation. However, there might be groups of consumers, such as vegan consumers, vegetarian consumers, and for specific products, such as new products, and also, for example, plant-based meat replacements with certain proteins in it, that this would actually give added value to those certain groups of consumers. So I think the problem right now is that we simply don't know. There's been no research done into it. So that's, I think, an area where we just have to find out still and present, for example, different types of information in different ways to see what sticks. And for example, does a QR code stick, or is a label enough? Yeah, you say it's 1.5% scans the QR code.
Yeah, I mean, this is one company telling us.
Yeah.
I haven't done a scientific survey, but we're working. I'm in fact supervising a student who's going into the company now, because they said, we want some advice. What should this QR code link to? People are scanning it. What information should be when they scan it? What are they interested in? How should the information be presented and stuff like that?
Yeah.
So I'm supervising a student who in fact has that as her work the next year. So.
Yeah, interesting. I'll be presenting somewhat similar research in the second panel.
There's one more stakeholder that I would like to introduce here, and that's consumer protection agencies. Right? They sometimes take the position of the consumer. So you mentioned the label, Fiona, right? That even that is too much information, but some people might look at it sometimes. Maybe they're looking for a particular logo that expresses some ecological property of it, and you want to be able to rely on it. Right, and then it kind of falls to consumer protection agencies often to check on that regularly, and they would be the ones who expose if somebody prints something on their label where actually the token is not available, proving that this is correct what it says on the label. Then you kind of have closed the loop without involving the consumer in every single product that they buy. And only for mature markets, of course, right? I mean, you mentioned the less mature markets than in Europe, where trust chains are not as established as the regulation forces here. There it may be a different story.
Like the first obvious use case is publishing, I think you mentioned it earlier, allergen information.
Mm-hmm.
Really important information. You have to put it on there.
Well, because that's the health. So this is.
Yeah. But I mean, when I was growing up, nothing had allergen information on it. Like,
Or even gluten is maybe last 6 years that you have a gluten-free section in the supermarket, at least in Amsterdam. But yeah, and one thing I would like to add is that I think if you look here in this room, except you, it's probably 30 or up. And we are now the persons who do all the groceries, right? And we are also the ones with a good salary, and the younger ones, well, they're building to have that salary. But I think it's also good to like do research with the younger generation, because basically they are the ones who are born with tech. They would understand it way faster than we do. And the older generations, I think it's good somewhere for people to realize that if we're building stuff, we should involve them way more, because now we're building it for us. And us, if I tell this to my friends, clueless. No idea at all. Tokens lost. I don't even have to drop the word. Crypto scary. So in that sense, I think it's really good to understand that generation could easily get it.
Adopt.
Exactly, adopt. While us, and then my mom, forget about it. Difference between voicemail and text, she's lost. So I mean, it's good to do something with it if we're building it and putting money in it.
Just to say that well, we are absolutely over the time, but for me it's a very interesting discussion. So I want to cut the discussion, but we want to propose a new schedule for today, no, Monique?
Yeah. So we have now scheduled the brokerage session, and it was supposed to be 1 hour. Maybe we should just be very brief. 10 minutes.
We can move the brokerage session to the lunch.
To lunch.
You can merge.
Yeah, merge both. And right now, to extend a little bit more, maybe this discussion, but I think that is very, very interesting. So a lot of things. And later on, we can pass to the Patrick talk, or later.
I mean by talk, but
I don't know. What
because Patrick has a pitch to make. We should present some European calls for funding opportunities, and then Patrick would do a pitch. And I don't know. Maybe we do it now. What is the feeling? Are you hungry?
Yeah, you have to be aware that
do you prefer to go lunch and we do it later? How is the?
Maybe I propose that we go to have lunch at the same time, thinking about collaboration possibilities.
Yeah.
And here we have the magnetic post-it. You could grab a marker, a whiteboard marker, just write on it and post on the whiteboard. That we can perhaps do this during lunch, or then we merge the two sessions together.
And what is the
idea is that we have 3 colors.
I will share my screen. So it's there.
So the rules of the game is on the screen.
Sorry for cutting this discussion, but
Because I do
You have
want to
to.
hear the panel of Patricia and Patrick and Liam, of course. So I think let's merge the brokerage session and lunch together.
Discussion in the panel.
So the idea was, if I may, was to present some 4 Horizon Europe calls that we have selected that are interesting for the project. Maybe we can go to that very quickly. And other collaboration opportunities. Then it's EIT Food. And then Patrick would do some pitch with fingerprinting kits. And then the one-to-one meetings is what we will do probably now during lunch, while we have lunch. So the idea is that people that would like to offer something to write in this yellow card, right?
Yes.
And if you have any demanding idea, write something in the blue, and the red is for mediating. This is very basic, so we could go lunch and think about these collaboration opportunities that we could do. So I don't know, if I have 5 minutes, I will just go to the European calls.
no, it depends on yes or no.
Because this will be food for your thoughts, then you can. So we have selected here because one of the aims of the TrustEat is also to continue the collaboration that's of this amazing consortium. So and also to bring other partners together. So we have selected these 4 Horizon Europe calls that are aligned with the topic. One is a CSA, a coordination and support action. It's a 2 million budget for one project that will be supported. And then we have 2 research and innovation actions and 1 innovation action. And all these calls are with deadline for February next year. So we are still on time to build a consortium, so you can think about it and discuss with the people around the room to see if we have any synergies to collaborate. So this is the CSA. The scope is and the aim is to develop a community of practice to foster knowledge and exchange between end users and research and innovation ecosystems. We'll work together mapping existing food fraud practices. I won't go into all the call, but I will leave it here so you can, while we're having lunch, you can come here and read the text. Yes, sure.
One question, do you know if you are in one Horizon call, because I know there's like a rule for it, can you be in a second one?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
No worries.
There you go.
So this one is very, very aligned with the TrustEat strategy. So it's one that we are very interested in applying. So.
Well, actually, this call, it seems that was designed for the continuity of this project, because it's related not only with the technologies, but as well with the implementation of this technology. So it's the next step, no? I think that we have to go.
Yeah.
I think we're in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is the same call that I shared with.
No, that's this one. No.
Yeah, then we have here, this is a research and innovation action.
This is another one.
For February. This is also very interesting for the people that are here in the audience. The aim is to develop and optimize new efficient methods and process to reduce costs and impact in the environment to produce minimally processed and functional foods. And the other one, also a research and innovation action, is a climate change and food safety. effects of the climate change on food safety across the food systems. This also includes the use of big data and AI to elucidate the complex interactions between climate change and food safety. And the last one, this is an innovation action, so it has a little higher tier L, and aims to develop tools and applications to enhance citizens to have a healthy and sustainable food provision. So this is very briefly what I just wanted to show you on the Horizon Europe calls. Please reach us if you are interested, and I hope we come out of this meeting with a lot of collaboration.
But the idea is not to limit to this call. So if you identify another calls where we can build a consortium and
there are 8 to 10 other calls
where
blockchain is explicitly mentioned. I know these fairly well. We're already in consortia for 2 of these, but there are 6 to 8. If you search the whole program just for the word blockchain, you'll find 14 mentions I discovered before this meeting. And
if you can share,
there is for biodiversity, there is for tourism, there is for textiles, there is for furniture. I know there's not food, all of it, but there's a lot of them where blockchain is mentioned explicitly in the call text as a requirement to look.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
So
and just
on cluster 6 for Horizon Europe, yes.
particularly where you're looking at the digital strategies, be aware that the European Union is reconfiguring the single digital marketplace. What are they calling it? The European digital infrastructure, and supporting standardization around that. So there's a lot of focus on AI standardization, quantum, blockchain, of course, cloud, and it's in any of these applications when you're looking at impact, it will be helpful to you to reference standardization, open standards, and some of the like the EU rolling plan is definitely something to have a look at when you're referencing it, because they're looking for that as impact indicators, as a little flag for you people.
So I think that I'm sorry to, but as we are now on the clock, we have this information and we would go lunch and discuss.
Wait, I think my pitch does not make sense to separate from this kind of.
So you want
this one?
Okay,
Yeah.
Let's go.
So I'll be super brief.
No worries.
Yes.
I think the lunch is cold. No worries.
Yeah, must be by now, yes. So look, maybe it makes more sense to pitch this now so we can have also discussion over lunch eventually. But if you recall the sketch that Lan showed, this overview of the 3 layers of the TrustEat project, so the physical layer, digital layer, and then we have the application layer. There are a lot of teams that are doing great innovation in the physical and digital layers, but there's also a lot of friction and people trying to reinvent the wheel in some cases. And so Gianmarco and I both mentioned we were working on a technology that was supporting sort of rapid fingerprinting. And I also heard the keyword here, machine learning combined with analytics in introductions. And so we came up with something that we found could be useful as a kind of base kit for others to explore, to build applications on top of more easily, not having to worry too much about how to connect the sensor, how to train the machine learning model, and so on. So depending on the focus of a research project, it can be easier to have a starting point, some shoulders to stand on to build an application. And so I brought this basic device platform that we're making available, like accessible at under sort of academic license conditions. So it should be very easy for projects and consortia to use in a research context to try out applications, and basically really get really simple access to this hardware, right? And so if you're interested in this, I'm very happy to have a chat. We've used this exact same system for many different kinds of applications that could be considered relevant in the food domain. We heard before about the crypto anchor concept tying physical unclonable tags to identifiers. Well, one of the best identifiers is actually the chemical fingerprint of the substance itself. It's one of the most difficult things to fake if it's original. So this was the approach we took here. And so just to flash some examples by you, yes, we see it all. So, you know, the same platform without modifications has been used to detect defects in beverages, has been used to identify concentrations of trace metals or ppm level concentrations of metals, to verify certificates of analysis, something we heard about before as well, and even estimating sensory attributes. So if this sounds interesting to you, I'll be super happy to have a chat.
I know a wine project in Catalonia that would be very interested to connect with this, so for sure.
Cool.
I'll follow up there. That's really interesting about the wine, the intensity, the flavor, all of that stuff. We did a metaverse wine tasting, actually, which was a virtual wine tasting. No wine at all, just your imagination. I'm really interested in food and simulated environments. I was kind of hoping you were going to ask a question about that. But I think there's loads of really interesting stuff that can happen with greater accessibility of some of this information. But there's a whole bunch of farmers testing chemicals on their soil that this could be a really great data opportunity.
I also had yesterday, I think, a conversation with an Indian company, and they are trying basically to get consumers enthusiastic about organic food, like with less pesticides or whatever, but they are not that interested, that's what we already said. So they developed a kit that you can test the mangoes and see if they're organic or not, or what kind of, how do you call it? If it's grown faster, you can test it with a chemical. One of them, I guess. I can look it up, but and you can test it. You can see no, it's naturally a matured mango, like in a
They
grown.
use hormones to accelerate
Yeah,
growth.
and then you can see it's not and blah blah. And it was quite funny because you can also use it in education, even for kids. It's fun and it would make it easier.
It's this prosumer thing. Yeah,
It's really fun. Yeah.
really nice.
It just made me think because.
Yeah, in many cases, you can see that the underlying enabling technology is similar.
Yeah.
And that the application is a kind of a configurability or customization that needs to be done by the respective domain.
Yeah.
So it's not a technology provider that can bake this into a solution that you can replicate, but this is something that happens somehow, we feel, in a secondary step. And so it can make sense, right, to have a kind of experimentation kit that allows you to explore these kinds of applications.
Yeah.
Quickly, with the least possible overhead.
Yeah, you can do it at home yourself. Yeah.
Right.
So there's a really nice synergy between like open source. This is a somewhat open source idea, open source, open standards, open innovation, and accelerating new products to market in that way, creating awareness and knowledge transfer, and also I think brings us closer to this just-in-time context that I think that the future just business is faster and it's digitally enabled. That's really interesting.
It's important that at this point that Patrick brought to the floor, because one of the pillars of this TrustEat project is to connect the physical layer with the digital layer. And we need to have hardware to harvest all this data, all this information, and to manage later on the information. And this hardware have to be affordable, portable, well, many attributes that we need to develop materials for that. And I think that in any project that we can think for the future, I think that this combination of both layer plus social aspects, customers, etc., I think that have to be a must, in my opinion. So, nice.
Thank you.
That's what I hope to do. I do feel like a bit of a odd one out in this room, being like a consumer researcher, but it helps that we had the discussion on the consumer side of things already. And I did give some spoilers maybe in the last panel discussion already. So my name is Liam Dwyer. I work as a researcher, so I think 2 years ago I came into contact with blockchain for the first time when a friend of mine told me about this I think it was a sort of a cryptocurrency called Beef Chain. I'm not sure if some of you know this, but he told me you could trace the origin of your beef and your meat back entirely to the farm where it was brought up. I thought, wow, that's interesting, and I'm also very interested in knowing how the consumer would react to that type of information, because I don't think it's available at that moment. So I wrote my master's thesis on that half a year later, and I'm very happy this year that I had the chance in the KB 37 project to once again dive into this topic, so to say. So together with my colleague Emily Bouwman, who isn't here today, but together we are doing a study into assessment of consumer wishes for traceability aspects, basically. And we focus on vegan, vegetarian, and flexitarian consumers, and then specifically on what they find most important for plant-based meat alternatives, or meat replacers. And very quickly want to go over, so I work in the consumer studies department at Wageningen Economic Research, and what we do is, so we study the consumer in their sort of choice making or consuming environment. And that means we study how they interact with products, how they sort of handle products, and why. And we try not looking at sort of the broad consumer, but really focus on a consumer as part of their environment, their context, as part of, well, household or their demographic. So try not to look at it too broad, but I really zoom in a consumer. And my real interest is in how do technologies strive or fail, and what sort of causes this. And I look at the cause of that often at the consumer side as well. So that's just a very quick introduction into sort of my work. But I thought that might be good to include as, so I'm the only one with sort of a consumer background. Now, the rationale behind doing a consumer study, I think we went sort of over this already in the last panel discussion. We know, for example, that new traceability innovations will sort of enhance the amount of information that is available throughout the system, more than there's, I think, available maybe right now, or at least was. Now, a couple of years ago here at Wageningen, Wendy van Rijswijk, she did a couple of very interesting studies into do consumers actually value traceability information, value more traceability information than they get right now, and what does that do with consumer confidence in food? And she sort of found out that most of the people that she spoke to or asked, they said, well, yeah, we are really interested to know more about where our food comes from, but we don't want to have extensive information. That's kind of what we went over with just now. We don't want detailed information. We want it short, easily usable in one sort of so in one take. I gotta take it all in. Don't want to think about it. So that's a bit conflicting right there. I do want more information, but I don't want to think about it really. So that's one question, and sort of a rationale for doing this study. And we know that traceability and effective labeling differs for different consumer groups and different products. And that's the reason why we focus on these different consumer groups: vegans, vegetarians, flexitarians. And then also that, for different foods and ingredients, I think we went over this just now, there are certain foods that this will probably be very useful for, and then there are different foods that, well, just doesn't merit the higher cost of traceability and communicating that. And then more recently, the link also was laid towards consumer trust. So what is often said, and we have a Dutch saying, is that trust arrives on foot and leaves on horseback, which is to say, trust is very difficult to build up, but then once it is broken, it immediately leaves. So, and that's very much, I think, applies for food safety, and then also for a new traceability system with more sort of information sources.
more information sources just also sort of higher the chance of having a failure at some point, and that could quite easily break trust more easily. So it's really important to also keep that trust relationship in mind and see how how a new amount of information might influence trust and confidence in food safety. So what we did is study into that. I'll quickly go over that study. I wish I could present results already, but we're busy in the middle of sort of doing this study, so I can't give any results, but I do want to quickly go over what we're doing. So we set up a questionnaire, vegans, vegetarians, flexitarians, and also a control group. We list a whole bunch of traceability elements or attributes that are available throughout the traceability system. And then we let them really rate the importance of every attribute. And we also sort of want to know how do we actually have to communicate such traceability attributes. So is that on a QR code, or do we have to have a specific label on that? Is sort of in text? Is that the preferred way of seeing such attributes? And do we want that on the front of the package, on the back of the package? It's more sort of product oriented. And then in order to sort of differentiate within those vegan clusters, vegetarian clusters, of course, there are many different types of people. We also included some trust measures, some food choice motives. So why do you actually purchase the food that you purchase? So how important is, for example, food safety to you? How important is it to, for example, have very healthy food or sustainable food? And then also food involvement. So how involved are you in purchasing the food that you're purchasing at the supermarket? People vary in that sense, and we can sort of derive their characteristics through a questionnaire. Our expected results, we would love to present results, expected results, is probably an importance rating of key traceability data attributes for consumers, and then also preferred location of where that's placed on a product and whether that's a QR code or label. And then for different consumer groups, we again be very specific who has which needs. And then for different products, highly processed and less processed, and we're going to be able to differentiate between different types of consumers, which is really, and I acknowledge this, but this is sort of the first step in hopefully a line of research that follows from this, if we, of course, find some interesting results, because this is sort of directly asking, okay, from this list of, let's say, 15 attributes, what do you find important? But of course, that is not simulating a shopping experience. Shopping is sort of going through the store and then two products, okay, I'll quickly read through it and then put it back and I'll take this one. So it's a lot less like having focused attention on what you find important. So it's a basis for follow-up research, for example, in an online shopping environment, or to really have a sort of to present 3 types of products and have them say which one they prefer, to really dive into more realistic shopping experiences, so to say. And I think that is very important also in this discussion around traceability, because involving consumers in that design of how does this this technological development in the end trace its way back to a consumer in the store. I think it's quite important as well in all discussion. So that's just what I wanted to share. I'm sure since this is part of the KB project, that our results through any way Lan might be able to share them with you in the end. So now at least you have an idea of what we're starting up in terms of the consumer side of this. So, yeah.
Thank you, Lian. You can come back to our panel whenever you're ready. Great.
Born ready.
It's the younger generation.
I was supposed to know about blockchain.
When you were born.
Yeah, for example, yeah. Oh, maybe that's a huge expectation. Yeah.
So I was thinking we could do a quick round about how you personally would envision the future of blockchain within agri-foods. As a question, you want to propose something, Lan?
Maybe you could introduce Patricia.
Yes, maybe you could introduce yourself. I know you introduced yourself this morning. But,
Yeah, I did introduce myself this morning. I didn't prepare any slides. I didn't know we had an opportunity. Doesn't really matter. So yeah, I actually have a completely different background. I have no master's studies, and I'm not from food at all. I have a bachelor in economics, and my work experience before the last 6 years were mainly in marketing and events and a lot of big A brands. I didn't like that anymore, so I switched because they were only money driven. And then I ended up at Startup Village, but it's tech startup hub, and I loved it. So all the entrepreneurs there were like super passion driven, not money driven at all. What was quite funny to me that they mostly were working on the tech, what we discussed earlier today, and not thinking about how they would earn money from it. But for me was insane because that was what I was doing all the time, like explaining a new feature of a mobile phone so more people would buy it, for example. And then I got into subsidies, and that people were just like researching to, for example, come up with new sustainable materials while nobody was asking for it, but just because maybe we need them one day. So I really got excited about it. So I dedicated that I wanted to stay at least in the startup scene and in basically new technologies and innovations. And then from Startup Village, I met Marike. Marike is the founder of Open Food Chain, and she's based on Startup Village. So we are based on Startup Village. So a little over 2 years now, I'm working at Open Food Chain. So that's basically my connection into food and blockchain. So I'm quite a newbie. I did a small course on blockchain, so I know it, the basic stuff. I can explain it to my friends, and they don't get lost immediately. While if I ask one of my tech colleagues, everybody's lost right away. So yeah, I think that's a little bit about me, and my role, especially in the company, is running our accelerator program. So we have an agri accelerator program, and what we do there is trying to help companies who are looking for building an add-on on a product that they already have, to mainly look at stakeholder alignment. So what do we need to know to create this product? And it's also to see if other companies are interested in traceability, and maybe we can lab with them. So it has two functions a little bit. I think that's me. I can maybe what is nice if I was listening to you. I think that the main thing, if you look at new tech, is that consumers or whatever, they don't really understand it. So they don't. There's no adoption there. So what we try to do is to set up a showcase so people would understand it a little bit better. Well, it happened. They understand it a little bit better. So we created the blockchain burger. It's also a cool name, right? So what we did is we collabed with 9 farmers, and we created a burger, just a regular burger with regular ingredients, so tomato, cheese, the patty, etc. But it takes 9 farmers. Even it got me thinking. You know that thing that you buy for maybe €7, you eat it really fast. It takes 9 farmers to create it. And all the ingredients were verified by blockchain technology, so people could see it, people could scan it. So we had a launch event. People would at least understand a little bit more about where they're just eating really fast on a normal basis. So that was quite interesting. They didn't really understand the blockchain. It was also not really important, but to at least understand that it takes a lot of effort to create that small thing was quite interesting. So that was what we did with consumer. And we did it on Floriade another time. And we also did a small research in combination with Adidas. Yeah. So they are now also, I think, publishing it. Just, yeah. So if we have it, I will let you know. Yeah. Those little consumer thingy. That's it. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
I'm going to start with you, Patrick. And maybe the question is too general. Maybe we need to involve the consumer aspects as well. So is there a future for blockchain if the consumer doesn't even know it exists, or that he may need it? Or how do you see that?
Yeah,
Technically, we can do anything, right? So
yeah, maybe I'll rephrase the question slightly because,
Go ahead.
as you know from my introduction, I haven't worked in blockchain, so I consider myself an observer in this panel. So maybe like the future of digitalization in general for food safety is something we should be, or that I would like to focus on.
Let's start there and then we can.
And then we can narrow it down. And here I think one aspect that we haven't touched on too much, it was mentioned briefly in Fiona's presentation on. So I think consumer side is really important, right? What do consumers want? We understand that we don't understand yet fully what the need is there. But there's another aspect that can be a driving force for digitization and how we do things, and that is regulatory bodies, standards that are set, requirements for traceability. This may be a little bit of a far-fetched analogy, but we saw how in the EU the introduction of GDPR really changed the way that we need to deal with people's data and in terms of privacy. And I'm wondering, and there are probably people in the room who are more knowledgeable about this, I'm wondering if we can anticipate in the future more requirements being put in place for traceability. These are also things that have to do with declarations of origin and so on. So rather than, I'm not sure if the consumer will provide a sufficient pull by him or herself to, and I'm also not sure if industries can obtain sufficient return on investment by themselves to drive this change. And I'm wondering if we need these kind of forcing functions, requirements for things to be done in a certain way to at least get the ball rolling. So it's a question more than a statement, but I think the future of the digitization of food will be governed in a large part also by this. I'm curious to hear your takes.
Yeah, I would like to answer it, I think, in two ways. So the first thing, if you look at consumers, and well, we will also see some results in studies, but I think all of us, I don't know, maybe if you're really interested, but if you look at the back of a package and you look at all the things that are on there, like a natrium, but also just general fats or whatever, most of the people don't really understand what it means. So we can add more stuff and then still people don't know what it means. So I think there, the first thing, at least what I can say here from the Netherlands, there's no food education at all. Primary school, there's nothing. We learn to calculate and stuff like that, but what we put in our body, no education. So I think if we don't understand that, they will never be cool. So I fully agree. They will never help with the traceability. So let's go back and try if the government's gonna put some education there. And I think the second thing is you see now regulations popping up, and the regulation don't pull those consumers, but they pull maybe companies who do have the financial means to make basic traceability work. So I think that's a good thing. And we had actually in the accelerator a case about regenerative farming, and to see how they can tokenize it so there's no return on investment, but at least there's a good way, right, for the new farming, because they cannot do it themselves, because sometimes you have 2 years of that you will not be able to have crops because you have to move to regenerative farming. So who's going to finance that? And I think that's such a difficult topic, because who wants to do that if you don't get any money out of it? So then you do it all for passion, or I don't know, you found money. But what brings me to maybe the third thing is that if you look at general awards, for example, for companies, then they say, oh, this is the best company because it's grown 10% in revenue or all this kind of stuff. But they're never really pushed on, did you do good on these and these things? So the top 3 things are always like, for example, money driven, growth, more employees, or so that whole mentality still has to shift. And if that doesn't shift, you also probably not gonna invest if you don't get an ROE. So it's a whole.
The world's not ready.
Well, that's at the end.
What I hear you
It's
say.
what we see all the time is that the big companies, for example, they're interested in what we do, and then it's a big change, right? So what Peter said is maybe they're at system 3, and to move to system 6 means they have to change everything in their whole company. So they don't really want to, and then they have to pay for it, and they don't see an ROE right away, because customers will not pay more for an orange juice with a QR code on it. So why would they do it? So you also don't get the push now from the bigger companies. But it's a shame, but yeah.
Reactions?
I think one of the advice, we work quite a lot in applied projects where companies come to us here, and I'm not a big believer in legislation as a driver. It has happened very infrequently for specific legislation, for instance, the one I mentioned for fisheries, when we were suddenly on very short notice required to link it to catch, and then legislation was a real driver. People need to, but that's once every 10 years, stuff like that happen. So the one driver that is coming is batch-specific calculation of CO2 emissions on consumer packages. So the current situation is, as many of you know, if you're a big company and you order an LCA to be performed, they do an average of all your inputs and processes and outputs, energy use. You get an average number that is you can use for 3 years. It's valid for 3 years. You can say, for this package, the average the amount of CO2 produced in all the processes and all the ingredients went into this is this number. That's not particularly relevant, and that doesn't change. But what more and more companies are doing now is batch-specific calculation. So they calculate CO2 on the run for every single batch, and they're going to put that number on the consumer package. And there will be lots of consumers who don't care, but there will also be consumers who do care, who will actually specifically say, for instance, I am reluctant to buy products where more than 1 kilo of CO2 is emitted per kilo edible product. And that is coming. That's not something we need to discuss here. What we need to be aware of is that actually an advanced traceability system, and certainly a blockchain system, is a good way of actually calculating this. Blockchain with the added advantage that the data is sort of more secure. It's a bit more trustworthy. I mean, it's tempting to claim that you have good numbers for this, but if it's in a blockchain system, there's an additional degree of trust. So I think that's certainly one area within the consumer realm where there will be a driver. Once we start getting used to numbers that are very easy, I mean, you can claim they're misleading, but they're very simple. It's one number. It goes from, it will be somewhere between 0.5 and 8. And it's basically the amount of CO2 emitted per kilo edible product of whatever you have here. That's coming now. That's already available for some products. And blockchain is certainly a good enabler for that.
Yeah, can I just follow up on this point? Because I think it's really great. This overlapping fields, right, of food and sustainability are inseparable. And I think, I mean, you offered the consumer perspective on the emissions. Companies are required to report their own CO2 emissions, right, related to operations. And so I think there's an interest, to your point that you made during your panel also, for companies to have more accurate data, emissions data related to their processes, so they can react and optimize. And so I think there's a benefit here in both ways, even if the consumer still doesn't start to care too much about the CO2 emissions, because interpreting the number, specific emissions for a food product is maybe not so intuitive. Companies will be obliged to report their emissions. And so maybe there are ways in which this would then also accelerate, tracing in terms of emissions along the food chain. So I think this is a really interesting field that where there could be also push.
We in particular work with one fishing company that does this, and they secured a contract to sell cod to McDonald's Europe, which is one of the most discerning buyers, really for them lucrative contract. And the CEO says that their ability to provide batch-specific CO2 calculations was one of the things that won them the contract. And he said, I'm not even sure our numbers are good, that we are the best. We have low CO2 numbers, but no one else gives the numbers. Yeah. So we have that advantage compared to everyone else, but we actually provide numbers. And this has also led to the company board being interested in this and actually annually posting goals saying, okay, last year, our average was 1.25 kilos of CO2 per kilo edible. Let's have as a goal to reduce that to 1.2. What do we need to do? We perhaps will not go out in bad weather because we use more fuel. There's stuff you can do. So this has now led to concrete, quantifiable goals within the company. This doesn't reach the consumer yet, by the way. McDonald's doesn't tell the consumer, but McDonald's was very interested in this, and it is gradually reaching the consumer. So it will change the way that business is done, and it will influence preferences.
But why in the first place did they integrate this? What was why were they motivated?
This is very much a first mover and a completely transparent company. that they love technology. It's a fishing vessel. I can even name it because they're part of so many reports and so on. They've been featured on BBC documentaries about the world's most dangerous places to work on a fishing vessel. There's a computer game where you operate a fishing vessel, and you gradually get more and more money to buy a better vessel. And the top level is this vessel, the one that we actually have. I've gone out in a few times. They are a very forward-leaning company. They're the only company that I know that are completely transparent. I mean, they don't tell you prices and stuff, but for everything else, they tell you exactly. They open to anyone what they do, and they already had, or they were investing in a traceability system, a batch-based traceability system. I'm not going into detail, but there's a really big difference whether you go down on individual level or if you do it sort of generically. And they went, okay, what can we use this for? What data can we get for it? And they started to, since they already had this system, this was in fact, this was a result of an EU project. We had an EU project where we did LCA for them and then developed a simplified LCA that could be used every time they went on a trip. And they said, oh, this is excellent. We'll start doing this and present it to our potential buyers when we are selling.
Yeah, I think the big value proposition is, as you said, right? Even if the numbers may not be good, you have them.
Yeah.
And so you have a yardstick. You can improve what you can measure. If you can't measure it, you have no way of knowing where you are. And you cannot.
No, exactly.
So it's a tool to support also, process optimization while fulfilling your sustainability reporting goals.
Yeah, I was just curious. I thought maybe there was a reason why they wanted it. What could be like an incentive for all to join, because we didn't found it yet. So I was really curious, but just what Peter said is that the companies who want it are like the ones who want to show traceability or front runners or love tech. Those are the only ones who are now saying, oh, can we have a chat, Well, actually now it's changing because the EUDR, the German Due Act, the law that is coming in, the European law on 2026. So now people are getting a little bit more interested because they need to show supply chain data, basically. So that helps, but still, like one of our, let's call him a good friend, ex-Ahold. So, I think everybody knows Ahold, I guess. But he says it doesn't matter, that law can come in 2026. And what will happen is they cannot, they cannot track it. So they don't have enough people to do that for all the products. So what will happen, they pick up some big boys, find them, they don't care, they pay it and they do whatever they want again. So they got me really demotivated when he said that. But but it is kind of probably the truth for even after that regulation kicking in, that the first years we would probably be like that still. So.
But this internal motivation is as well in Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola aims to be zero neutral in CO2, and they are implemented this kind of policy as well to take the traceability where the CO2 is produced during all the. But I identify as well two other cases where the future of blockchain could be in food. Could be interesting. The first is the management of food crisis, like horse meat with Tesco, or the case of in Germany with some vegetables from Spain. That was not true at the end, by the way. So this information to manage the public perception of the risk, of how we responsibilize the different actors in the food value chain, how distribute the responsibility. So this is one. The second one is second one I forgot.
But the first one, do you need blockchain to do that? I'm going to just ask
the
question again.
But well, I understand the point, but one thing is the traceability. Another thing is what is the percentage of responsibility in this in a food crisis? So this is two different things, no?
This has a lot again with moving from level 3 or 4 to it doesn't matter if you go to 5 or 6. 5 is not blockchain, 6 is blockchain. But sure, it's a driver because most of the ones who are investing in blockchain are not going from 5 to 6. They are at the lower level and they're going to blockchain because they're going to upgrade anyway. And blockchain is like the cherry on top.
Because the point is not to follow the traceabilities, who cheat in a transaction, who make another paper with another analysis that was not the true, So, and in accuracy is very important because the second one is for pay for quality, So, for example, in the case of milk, you pay for the producers regarding the quality of milk. No, it's not only traceability; it's as well to know what is the quality. It's much more a fine tuning of the traceability.
Yeah,
we need an extra layer of information regarding this.
The challenge I see here, maybe, but this can be very consumer dependent, is that what builds trust, right? Is the consumer trusting a brand? Because then it doesn't matter if the brand adds a QR code with additional information or the brand represents a quality guarantee, right? So here I think it'd be super interesting to understand also what is generating trust in consumers when they make their choices. Anecdote, last week I was holding a bottle of a jar of Manuka honey. Mm-hmm. And for those of you who know, Manuka honey is pretty expensive honey, factor 10 more than other types of honey because it's the bees only collect, from the Manuka tree, and it's supposed to have health benefits. And there was a big QR code printed on top of this jar, so it was very straightforward to scan. And you arrive at the brand's homepage, right? A page for this product, telling you here's the link to the certificate of analysis. Here is the QR code has not been scanned in an unreasonable amount of time, so it hasn't been in circulation, in an unreasonable way, and a few more details about the product. And my reaction was sort of, okay, nice, but this is not adding in any way to the. But I guess it's generating a little bit of trust if I don't know the brand, but it could be. I'm not sure here. Maybe it's a high margin product, right? So you can afford to have this additional overhead of providing additional information, but I'm not sure that the additional trust is generated just because the same authority, the same vendor essentially is giving me more information about the product. And yeah.
I think it's swift during the year. So I think when we grew up and Coca-Cola said this is the best Coca-Cola, I believed it. I think if you now look at the younger generation, they maybe believe it when an influencer says it. They don't believe the brands anymore. So that greenwashing would happen over years. And so in the Netherlands, I think you can have like 5 different logos on the package saying, oh, you treated the animals better, it has good nutrition, label B, whatever, and all these kinds of things. And we believed all of them. But then it started to fall apart because it was in the news, and then everybody started setting all those labels.
Well, you mentioned trust is easy to lose, right?
Exactly. So it was gone in a second, and then I don't think that we look at it anymore. Only when you hear it's good, or maybe because it's a new brand. So I think that if you look now, but that is just a personal assumption, that we believe younger brands easier if they say they're good and sustainable than an old brand.
They haven't had time to ruin their track record.
And they just started, and they started from a passion. They came up with it. Yeah, it's completely different.
I mean, looking at it from the product and brand side of things, and we don't really have apart from your background in marketing, I don't think we really have that voice here. This is a really, really complex area, and truth is not highly valued in that analysis. It really is about A/B testing in the marketplace, and that's so much about consumer trends. We see now online virtual communities. There's this experience of kind of flocking, and that's only getting more intense. Flocking for and against influencers. I mean, influencers are the new, new politicians, yeah, in a kind of a way, and the cycle, or the reputation building cycle, becomes shorter, I think. And so now we see those big brands like Coca-Cola, maybe Kellogg's, maybe Marks and Spencer's, you mentioned that, or they've got all these sort of stately, I mean, it's weird to think of Coca-Cola having a stately reputation, but it more or less does, right? And we expect them, almost like governments, to make these kind of moves. You know?
Yeah, but if so, for example, Lorenzo, right? For the I said it wrong name. So Lorenzo said like, oh, Coca-Cola has this goal, and when he said it, my brain was like right away like, whatever. They're just doing it marketing wise. That's how I feel when Coca-Cola does it. When a new brand does it, it feels different because they were born that way. Coca-Cola wasn't born that way, so they're like trying to like. That's how I feel. I mean, when you said it, so they are trying to reverse it. Like no, we're actually doing good. And I'm like, nah, I'm not buying it.
Well, it's so weird because Coca-Cola is such a global brand. Part of the push for that is there's a shortage in aluminium, right? So they really, really need to promote reuse and recycling because they need to reclaim the aluminium, for example, for feedstock. So there's, at least we can trust that. There's something in it for them, right? The fish in McDonald's, I think that's really interesting. I think they're kind of famous for being very picky about their suppliers, actually. It's not my favorite food. It's not my favorite food for my kids, but we all do it, right? So,
Saturday night.
Yeah, or whatever. And they're part of society. I think McDonald's is probably, this is a little bit of a sidebar, but I mean it about society and virtual societies. McDonald's is probably the host venue for more separated families than any other brand in the entire world. Like, it's got this family reputation, but it probably means more to separated families, separated parents, than it does for someone like me, who I'm still together with the father of my kids, right? So we don't go as a family. But I'll tell you now, if we did separate, McDonald's is probably a place where you sort of drop off, have a coffee, be pleasant, hand over the kids, all that kind of stuff. So I'm not so sure that we're really engaged with what these brands mean in our lives, and what we expect from them, and how nuanced those big brands' moves can be. I really think they can be effective.
They are 100% effective. But I think that if you look at it from a consumer perspective, it's more do you believe it? So if Coca-Cola puts it on a new can, there's actually a new Coca-Cola starting from today. What is it called?
Something green.
Something green?
The future Coke 3000 or something.
Is it the AI generator?
Yeah, the AI generator one. You can taste it now. You can buy it in the Albert Heijn. But it's exciting. So if Coca-Cola would put on the can, we are 100% organic, whatever. Would I believe it? I probably would not believe it.
Really?
Yeah, I would not.
I wouldn't either.
Coca-Cola.
Yeah. No,
Anyway,
for
I
me,
see a
it's
hand
just-
in the back.
Yeah.
Elena.
Sorry, yeah. I think that it's really nice because then we have like two different point of views. I don't think that it depends a lot on the society and in the group of people who are like consumers. And thinking about what we have been discussing in the previous panel and having a broader view of what consumers mean in the food chain, it also allows us to have like a different perspective of what being going to McDonald's or to Coca-Cola means. And I think that, for instance, like within Coca-Cola, of course, they are huge companies and they have had a super important impact in the food supply chain. But we are talking about other different things that could be introduced in the table. So like, what about short food supply chains, like local and agroecological system? Those things are also like in the need of being included in this kind of conversation if we want to map the food system of the future. And relying on a company or like in a group of companies, it's extremely dangerous.
But it is part of reality, and I think what I've picked up in the earlier panel discussions is that the future of blockchain may depend on different use cases. Either it's a high-value wine market or a niche, or I've written down a couple of things, but it's probably highly automated, and these big companies have these long value chains that are highly automated and probably are very up for blockchain, depending on consumer demand maybe, but I don't think the consumer will make blockchain happen in the future, as I hear it from you. So I'm trying to summarize a bit what I've heard. So you mentioned regulations, which could be maybe a push, blockchain as an enabler is what you said, Peter. And then these new brands that may have more trust from consumers than...
Yeah, and the front runners, I guess. The bigger companies who are front runners, they can definitely push as well.
Yeah, so there is some future for blockchain, but we're not sure yet about where it will be apparent, and it's also keeps being invisible for most people, which is a problem. Maybe. Peter,
yeah, maybe a small comment there again, because we're discussing traceability now and not necessarily blockchain. For traceability, it hasn't really been the big companies who've been there is a technology graph, so adaptation graph from one of the big consultancies companies that shows the adoption. Anyway, basically you can split companies into 3 groups. The ones who reluctantly do the minimum of what they have to do to stay compliant, and the ones who, in the middle you have the ones who adopt sort of mature technologies and are slightly willing to change, but they are certainly not first movers. And then you have the first movers. The big companies are in the middle group. At least they have been that for traceability, certainly. The ones who go first are the smaller and more newer and specialized companies. One question that we used to get a lot when working with traceability is, you might not remember, but the first traceability legislation came in 2002, Common Food Law, as a direct result of what's called the dioxin scandal. And companies were panicking because they had to do this. And one of the questions that we were most frequently asked was, isn't these traceability requirements discriminating against small companies because they don't have the resources, so they haven't been digitized to that degree? No, it's not. That's not the case. That's not what happened. It's almost the other way around. The supply chains are so complex, the big companies, that the traceability challenges are enormous. It's far simpler. Even if the starting point for a smaller company is, I mean, at that stage, they were hardly even computerized. It's so much simpler for them to do it. So that's why when I mentioned this company that's selling to McDonald's, that is one vessel. That's why they can do this. They can have perfect traceability, and they do onboard freezing. They have complete control over their tiny supply chain. That's why they can do this. I mean, if you go to other companies that we work with that have 50, 60 vessels, it would be so challenging for them to design, for instance, their production process so that they separate it. So on landing, they would need to separate then the landing from each vessel. So it is actually, it's an advantage for small, agile companies that control the supply, that have a simple control supply chain that they control, rather than the big companies. They are normally in the middle on this.
And I absolutely agree with that. I think in Europe, we have an additional mover when we're talking about the European digital infrastructure, which is this idea of cooperative public administration or standardized public administration infrastructure right across the European Union. And that's what the European digital infrastructure is providing, and blockchain will be part of that. So that will be about departments of agriculture being able to integrate a blockchain interface for reporting from on-farm data or from co-ops. And incrementally, piece by piece, that will roll back further and further and further into the land-based kind of data gathering. Most of the blockchain solutions that kind of stop at the farm gate, there are really very few people acting on the farm, because the product is really, our produce is even really only digitized after it's leaving the farm gate. There are some instances where in beef and dairy in Ireland, that way. I'm forgetting that I'm in Holland or Netherlands right now. So there are a number of different aspects to that, and nobody's going to say this out loud. The most successful public administration that has established a highly usable blockchain infrastructure for its nation is China. The Fisco boss
service infrastructure, which is essentially a hybrid version of Hyperledger Fabric with an interface to a public network. Knowing that in China, the home of the e-commerce revolution, which essentially saw the atomization of all kinds of products and services, with outsourcing companies basically building the digital shop front, and then you're loading up a kind of service API in the background. And so what we have are payment reconciliations, agency contracts, pension payments as little microservice modules, which are being plugged into the back end for freelancer, influencer contracts. We're talking about digital marketing, super advanced in that marketplace. And you're being able to see traceability modules, payment reconciliation modules, tax payment modules, compliance and reporting modules, just like your web dev guy just plugs them in at your back end. And it's operational. Blockchain was banned until 2018, and that was operational within 18 months. And 4 of those use cases from China are in an ISO use case report that was published in 2020. It's already there. It's already happening, and the European Union will do something similar. That's what that idea of European digital services is about, infrastructure.
Scary stuff.
The future is digital.
Future is scary. Is blockchain future scary?
Blockchain's only one tiny little part of it.
Alon is looking at me like there's an issue with the time, or
No, I'm just.
Okay. So how are we for time? Okay. Until what time do we continue the panel discussion? Thank you. 5 minutes. Okay, good. Yeah, that's very interesting, but that goes beyond food, but is very impactful for us as citizens, I would say. Yeah.
I think a really key important thing for the food industry in Europe is the compliance and regulated context.
So I'm wondering though, I mean, when I envision blockchain being high use, if you like, for whether it's most long chain, complicated processes in food, or whether or not it's the smaller startups that can incorporate this technology from the get-go. What about non-Western or outside of Europe and North America? I mean, we do have these local food productions and local offset markets that they will never. I mean, we don't want 100% digitalized. It cannot happen all over the world, right? That the future?
Yeah. I was going to say for Latin America and the food industry in Latin America, so Argentina.
Small scale producers, I mean, small farmers.
But if we're talking about blockchain first, so blockchain in Latin America is being used by seriously big producers who are tokenizing their value chain, who are fundraising with ICOs, and using blockchain as the transparency or traceability mechanism for export, in particular into North America. So Argentinian beef shipping to the US, they are bolstering that trust layer using blockchain systems.
Yeah, but they sell into these larger chains, right? So, but
yeah, I think if you look at smallholder farmers, if you look into the really the first
farmer themselves doesn't need it.
Well, yes and no. It depends on what you add to the technology, what they can benefit from, I guess. So I think what you see now happening is that people are looking for a fair supply chain, which means everybody should also have a fair paycheck, what smallholder farmers are not getting ever. And if for example, they get something in return for putting that data on there, and it can be tokenized, it can be carbon credits, and they can actually get money out of it, then they benefit from it to use the blockchain to be that the first mile is added to the blockchain. It also adds value to us later on, not us as consumers, but more like the industry. Like, okay, we can track it down from the first mile and also see it's officially organic soya or organic cacao, because otherwise it's just been putting in silos and we don't know what is what. So in that sense, yeah, it makes sense to put them on, but also they can get benefit out of it if you do it in a good way. And there are like, you have all kinds of new initiatives. And I know somebody who's doing it in the Amazon, and they actually get immediately for carbon credits, they get paid for it in dollars, what is super nice for them. So they get incentivized to plant more trees, and they immediately see it. But it's if you're gonna look into it a little bit more deeply, you say, okay, this is not really solid yet, you know. So they're just giving away money, but just to promoting it a little bit. But I believe one day that it could be a good system, but it's not ready yet.
And as you said, I think the value proposition is to be very clearly articulated. So it's very easy to understand, what do I benefit if I get on the blockchain.
Exactly, and it should be low tech. The first mile to get on should be low tech version for them. Yeah.
I noticed that one of our panelists is leaving the building. So I would like to extend our gratitude and also a small gift.
Okay.
I think you can still take your pick as a first neighbor, as an early adopter. So we have a bottle of white, red, or rosé, I think. Orange, yeah. Orange, something orange.
Wine.
I think is it whiskey or wine?
Sorry.
Let's see if we get, okay.
You can open one if you like.
This is white, comes from the Wageningen wine. Oh no, TrustEat.
So let's see what we have in here. We want it to be traceable. We want to know everything about the product. It is. These are very tiny letters.
Join the reviews by TrustEat and Wiki program.
Okay, thanks.
The red one?
Sure.
I looked at it.
So there's white or red, yes.
And the orange one.
No,
The orange one. All right.
Yeah. My apologies, but I
Have to get a flight?
for the original. Yeah, I have a flight in a few hours from Amsterdam.
Don't worry. Thank you very much.
Hope to see you in a project in the future sometime.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
And we were already going to wrap up, I think.
Yeah.
Difficult to summarize all the panel discussions. I know I tried a bit. So may I just shift into thanking all the panelists?
Sure.
Yes.
The keynote speaker.
And the keynote speaker. So let me start with you, Patrick.
Oh, yeah.
So the six panelists and the keynote speaker, right? Okay. Can you help me out if I make a mistake? So I think five panelists still get to choose. Yeah. Everybody's curious what's in the box.
I'll just grab one.
Oh, it is a
Thank you very
rosé.
much.
Oh, lovely.
Orange is rosé. Okay.
Thank you very much, Patrick. I hope you
pleasure.
enjoyed the program. And so whichever.
The rosé is fine.
The rosé. Thank you very much for being here today. And for you, red or white?
I'll go with red. Please.
Red?
Yes.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I invite Fiona, please? Sure. And Lorenzo, you were on the panel, right?
Yeah.
No, we're the organizer.
You were somewhere the moderator.
The whites? There you go. Thank you very much. Yeah, Gero, come up here.
Yes, ma'am. What is this?
White or red?
White or red? What's the
Lorenzo
white one?
gets the last pick, sorry.
Can I have a look?
Yes.
I like wine.
In
general.
Doesn't matter. Transparent, traceable, no,
Yes,
doesn't matter. Wine is wine.
It's not a Riesling, is it?
What is this?
Okay, I'll try this.
Okay. Thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you.
And then there's white or red.
Up to you.
Choose. No, you have to choose. You
Red.
want blockchain in the future or no blockchain in the future?
Good wine.
I'm joking.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And this one's for you. Okay. Is this the end of the
lab tour.
Oh, the lab tour. Of course, we're going to move into the lab tour, which starts in 15
Coffee break
minutes.
first, no?
Break?
I think.
Okay.
I can't join. I emailed you.
Yes.
So
Okay.
I have to leave as well.
Well, me too, actually. But I wanted to say just a few words from my personal huge heart for this project of TrustEat, because it's been 3 years that we've been working on this project. So just want to thank everybody in the consortium and everyone joining me today. I think we've exchanged a lot of knowledge, and I really hope that we can continue our collaboration somehow. So thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah, and if anybody here is applying for Horizon and looking for partners or whatever, what we said before, Open Food Chain is definitely open, so you can always at least check with us. So if you're doing another project, then let us know as well.
Thank you. Okay, good luck on the tour.